What is up, YouTube? That's it here, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys a tier list ranking every single Mega Evolution specifically for Ranked Battles Season 2. You know, we've been doing a bunch of tournaments in this game, and since I'm the one that has to gather all the usage stats and data for all of these tournaments, I've got a pretty good understanding of what the best Mega Evolutions are in the game. I've finally gotten around to using all of them in various testing formats as well, so I think it's the right time to actually rank all of these, and what we're going to be doing here is going over and putting them on this list right here. So we're going to be ranking them by S tier for amazing. A is going to be very good, which is going to be something that you definitely want to be using on your own teams. B is going to be a solid Mega, something that definitely deserves to Mega in games and would be better than just using like a Life Orb or a different damage boosting item. C is going to be usable. There's going to be a few of those, and then D is going to be below average. Now I want to say, if we take a look at most of these Megas, I will say most of them are usable, but it really depends on how well they actually stack up in the Ranked Battle Season 2 meta. Remember, things like Xerneas, Yveltal, Diancie, they definitely change what metas and megas are actually usable in these formats to their fullest potential. So if this list sounds like something you're interested in, please think about dropping a sub on the channel. We're so close to getting to 50,000 views. We're making daily Pokemon content on here, tons of ZA stuff. We're trying our best to be as educational and analytical as possible. And again, like I was talking about earlier, we actually host a bunch of tournaments live on Twitch. If you're interested in those, link to that channel in the description. So let's just get right into this, and what we're going to be doing when we rank all of these mons is actually going over and going into Pokemon Showdown and breaking down common sets for these guys and actually showing you guys why these megas are where they are in the tier list. So starting things off strong with Mega Delphox, one of the newest megas to this list. Mega Delphox is actually really cool. If we compare Delphox, right, with its mega form right here, you can see it gets a massive boost to its special attack stat. It gets a little bit of a boost to its SPDEF and speed stats as well. So I actually think it's a very usable Mega right now. I would say fire types are actually pretty premium in the Mega because they break all those, you know, steel types that actually, you know, threaten Xerneas. I think this is actually a very good partner for Xerneas in a lot of situations. It's also very good into a lot of the poison types because a lot of the poison types in the games actually share like a bug or grass typing. So I would say, or like, you know, you have Psychic to be super effective against those as well. So it's a very good partner for something like Xerneas, which a lot of people would say is the best mon in the game. Now, when I play this mon, what I actually like to do is make it a reflect light screen mon. That's probably my favorite way to play it. I make it a lead, and then you bring it out back in the middle of the game, drop that Mega Evolution, and you can go for like Heat Wave, which is going to be one of the better fire moves in the game. It's going to create like a cone of effect right there, and you can hit multiple mons with it. It's really hard to get out of Heat Wave. You basically have to swap to get around it, and it's going to be very solid. Then you also get access to things like Psychic and Psyshock on this guy as well. I think it's really good. I think it's a very solid mon, and I think that while it hasn't gotten like amazing tournament usage so far, I think a lot of people are still using things like Chandelure. I think it's just a matter of time until Delphox really breaks through the meta and, you know, comes out on top. I think you can honestly just use like a heavy special attack HP set on this guy. You're probably going to be in situations where you know, you don't need to have this much special attack. You might be able to get just like a little bit more in something like a specific defense to live through something. But I think Delphox is going to be a very usable mon. So where would we put it on our tier list right here? I would say for now, it's probably going to be in the very good category. And I want to say I'm going to do my absolute best to rank these within their tiers as well. I would say it's going to go in the very good category. I think the mons in the amazing category are the meta-defining mons that when this thing megas, like everyone on the board trembles, and there's not that many things that can stop it from getting at least 1 or 2 KOs. Mega Delphox is going to be using its Mega Evolution to like block one attack that would, you know, KO it like an Earthquake or something, and then try to repin something, and it's a lot more utility based than something like, you know, I'm going to say like a Garchomp or an Excadrill or something that's just going out there and farming KOs. So good mon, but you know, we'll see how high it ranks at the end of the list. So let's talk about Mega Feraligatr. Mega Feraligatr is another new Mega Evolution. So we're going to plug in Feraligatr here. We can see the differences between these two mons here. He gets a 160 in attack. So humongous boost to attack, humongous boost to defense, and a small boost to SPDEF. This is actually like the perfect stat line for a really bulky bruiser. It also gains dragon typing. So it goes into Water Dragon, which in any other format would honestly be like one of the best typings in the game. It's just unfortunate that it's going to be in a meta that has as things like Diancie, Xerneas, even Yveltal, we're neutral into stuff like that. Like having dragon typing doesn't give us any resistances against like Yveltal's dark and flying coverage. That being said, I think the biggest thing holding Feraligatr back is actually not its its stats. It's going to be its moveset. Its only real dragon move is going to be Outrage. And then while it does get access to things like Waterfall and Liquidation, it doesn't get that Dragon Rush. It doesn't have the big gap closers that you need. It also doesn't have Ice Punch, right? It gets Ice Fang. And so it's one of those situations where if they have a better dragon than you, they just beat you. You go Mega, gain a weakness to them, and you get Dragon Rushed in the face. And it's one of those situations where like this might be a mon that's just better off with something like a Life Orb on like a regular Feraligatr. Like realistically, that could be something that you might want to use with this guy. That being said, it also still does get access to things like Earthquake and stuff like that. It's definitely still a usable mon. I would definitely put it near the very top of the usable category, or like the very bottom of the solid. And I think I'm going to put it at the bottom of the solid because it's one of those mons that could be a really, really good partner on the right team. I think if you were opening up with something like a Screens Metagross, like I think, or any Screens user realistically, like if you're going to open up with something like an Ampharos, like that's a very solid mon people are using right now. And you have the standard like Light Screen, Reflect, Charge, and Thunderbolt here, right? This is what people are using on Ampharos with either like a Magnet or a Shucca Berry, right? So this could be a really good mon that you could pivot to get out of a pin from Ampharos, right? So Ampharos would not want to deal with ground types. So like if they have like an Excadrill and they're pinning you with this Ampharos, you pivot to your Feraligatr, you can outpin them with like your various water and ground moves, and then just come out on top, and you still have those screens. And I think like Mega Feraligatr behind screens gets a big boost. So it's one of those mons that really like has to have the right teammates, but you can enable this thing to be a major threat. I think there have been like a few of them that have actually like crept into the upper standings of our tournaments every once in a while. I only have like the last 3 usage here. We basically host these every single day on Twitch, but yeah, there's a Feraligatr right there, and like it's on a good team. It had like a Whirlipede. Yeah, that's a good example. You use Whirlipede to trap them with Infest and pivot to either Zern to pin like any sort of fairies or dragons, or like Feraligatr to pin anything that like would take good damage from Feraligatr. So I think it's usable, and there's also one down there too. So it's like you see it pop up every once in a while, and I definitely think it's better than people are giving it credit for. So let's talk about Meganium here. Meganium is going to be a mon that I actually really like, and I don't think people are really utilizing it correctly yet. So if we take a look at Meganium and its Mega Variant, it gets a boost to its attack, a boost to its defense, a big boost to its special attack. That's like 60 points. And then a boost to its BDF. It's actually a very usable mon, and I just think people are not really utilizing it correctly. Similar to Delphox, I think its best set is actually Light Screen Reflect. I think that you want to open with this mon, and the fact that you are just a grass type really means you can pair it with some mons that have some massive ground weaknesses. I think that like this plus like a Mega Chandelure could be really good. You're going to cover up for Chandelure's water weakness, its ground weakness. Chandelure is going to cover up for your poison and fire weakness, so you gotta have the right teammates to enable a mon like this. But then when you Mega Evolve, you gain access to like Dazzling Gleam, which is actually really, really good. That's something else that helps you like beat something like a Garchomp that would massively pin your Chandelure. So I think it's very usable, and then you also get access to like Solar Beam. When you're already Mega Evolved and stuff like that, you're able to use plus power boosted Solar Beams, big special attack stat. I think it's very usable mon. It just takes a lot of babysitting, and depending if you're playing on like ranked ladder or tournament or something like that, I think this could be a mon that if you want to have like a slightly slower game, you could get a lot of value off of Meganium. But it definitely requires like a very specific playstyle. It requires the right teammates, as opposed to like Feraligatr, who just requires like a screens user. Meganium is like a screens user that only enables a very specific set of Pokemon. So I'm going to put it in the usable category, and I want to drive this home, guys. Usable does not mean bad. It's probably going to be very near the top of the usable category. Usable just means like you can totally use this thing. It will be more beneficial to have this on your team than to not have the Mega version or to not have something else. I think usable just means like, hey, this is good. I'm going to be pretty generous with like how viable a lot of these mons are, because I really do feel that a lot of these Pokemon are just really good in any format. And I'm going to really be stingy with these amazing picks up here. That's just how I like to do my tier lists. And I just want to say, if you guys are liking this content, this is your little reminder. Think think about dropping the sub here. We're trying to get to 50k. We're getting so close. And if you guys have any suggestions for any other sort of tier list or, you know, educational Legends EA content that we could be making here, please let me know in the comments, and let's just get right back into the tier list here. So we have Mega Emboar. Mega Emboar is actually, I think, a lot better than people thought it was going to be. If we take a look at Emboar here, you can see that it gains like a massive boost to its attack, it gains defense, it gains speed up. This is what you want to see. You want to see these megas actually getting like a lot chunkier and not wasting points from like a special attack like useless stat, even though like 110 is not even useless. That's stronger than like a Flygon or a Salamence, right? So I think that it's a good mon. The way that people tend to play this thing is they go like Head Smash, which is not stab, but it can let you OHKO things like Gyarados and Dragonite and stuff like that. Then they have Flare Blitz, so it's just a ton of like gap closers. And then I think it does get some of the elemental punches as well. Yeah, it gets that Thunder Punch if you want to use that. I think it also gets like close combat. So it's all just gap closers. And I think a lot of people like to go Earthquakes. I've even seen some people use Protect or even Curse in this situation just to get like additional stat boosts. The fact that you have like massive attack on this guy is gonna be really good, and you don't need to go full HP investment on this thing, but most people probably just do something like this, right? I realistically feel like you could go heavy HP on this guy because like Head Smash recoil is going to be very significant, taking half, and you don't just want to always KO yourself. So a set like this wouldn't be terrible. But that being said, where would I put it on the list? I think it's a great mega for beating Xerneas and Yveltal. You know, you can Head Smash that Yveltal, get that one-shot easy peasy, but you can also maybe like live one Moonblast, depending on if they got their boost off or not, and just full send in like a massive Flare Blitz into that mon. So I think it's very usable. I think it might even be here. I'm going to put it probably near the bottom of like the solid category. I think that's where it's going to be ending up. I think it's a usable mon. The only issue with this thing is that it is 100% required to mega. Like, you can't really just use regular Emboar. Its attack stat's way too low. So it's one of those mons, we're going to compare it something to like a Mawile, to where like in its non-mega form, it's just complete garbage. But I'm not going to say that. It's just not very usable. You're just fodder. You're fodder for Garchomps. You're fodder for a lot of different things. And you need that bulk and the damage that you actually get upon Mega Evolution to actually be a threat. So you can't really open with it like you can with all these other mons. Can be great openers. They can set screens early. They have good coverage moves early. Emboar just doesn't really have that, so it's going to be holding it back just a little bit. So let's talk about a new Mega, and that's going to be Mega Pyroar. Mega Pyroar is a mon that I actually thought would be better. If we compare the two, you can see it gets a decent boost to its defense and Spadef, and then it gets like only 20-ish, 20 boost to its special attack, which is not really significant enough. I think the issue holding back Mega Pyroar is just, while it has decent coverage, it's a little bit weak. It has Earth Power, you know, it has Heat Wave, and then a lot of people like to just go like Hyper Beam on this thing, like massive stab Hyper Beam. And so the problem with a set like this is like Chandeler's like really, really popular. And even Metagross is pretty popular, and if they Mega Evolve on your Heat Wave, Hyper Beam's not doing anything, Earth Power's not doing anything. Another problem with this thing is Xerneas is also pretty popular, and so having a special attacker is just really not that amazing. And then only having 129 special attack, while that is high, that's like lower than you would be doing damage with just a Pyroar, right? A regular Pyroar with like a Life Orb would be doing more damage than this Pyroar. Right, so it's one of those situations where you don't actually get a lot of value out of Mega Evolving, and you're going to be able to just have more damage off this, or even like a damage reduction berry, just regular Pyro would be doing more damage. That being said, this is the set that I used when I used this thing, and it worked. It just missed a lot of KOs. So where would I put this thing? I would realistically put it below average. It has a lot of weaknesses. It's going to be weak to water. It's going to be weak to ground. It's going to be weak to fighting. It's weak to so many different things. Rock. Like, we could go with this all day. And while it does resist Xerneas, all the things that are paired with the Xerneas just roll this thing over. So it's not that it's bad. It's not that it's bad. It's just one of those situations. We might even just be able to change this below average area to say, these mons are better with a Life Orb, like on their non-mega forms. I think that's pretty fair. So, you know, one good thing about like how megas work in this game is that you can actually mega evolve like multiple mons per team, and you're not just locked into one mega evolution. If you were just locked into one mega evolution, this would be a very underwhelming mega, I would say, because it just would not be worth the sink or the investment. But it is definitely usable. I think it has like one top 16 in the past like 3 or 4 tours that we've played, and it's probably going to be near the top of this list, but that being said, I just think that the fact that it's dual stabbing moves that aren't commonly super effective against what's popular in the meta right now, it just makes it really hard. So let's take a look at Mega Clefable. I think Mega Clefable is another one of those mons that just really fell off. Let's take a look here and see the different stats here. You see it gains like 40 special attack. It gains like decent defense and spadef and stuff like that. I think it's a good mon, right? But it also gains flying typing, which I actually think is bad. It's gaining a weakness to Thunderbolt, a weakness to Ice Beam. That's not anything you want, considering you're not stabbing any moves. Like the moveset for this guy is always just going to be like Moonblast, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, and then some people like tech in like a Calm Mind or even like a Flamethrower here and just go super aggressive. You don't even use the Air Slash. There's nothing you could Air Slash. Like Air Slash on this thing, which is the flying move it gets, you might as well just Flamethrower so you can still hit Metagross, right? Or Scizor and stuff like that. Air Slash, even the stab is just not worth it. So that being said, where would this thing go? I definitely think it's usable. I think that it can also do a bunch of other things. I think it also gets access to like Light Screen Reflect. Like you can do so many different things with this guy. But I think the Mega variant is just not very good. I think you're just almost better off with like a regular Clefable with like an Expert Belt or like a Life Orb or something like that. I think you would be better off with just like good coverage. That's how I would play it. But I will definitely put it in the usable category. It's definitely a usable Mega. Having a Fairy Mon is going to be good in this meta because we have so many dragons that are still very popular, like Garchomp running around. It's good into Yveltal. I think it's usable. It's just that you have to be very protective of it because like Scizors, Metagrosses, all those things running around are very problematic. I will say the fact that it does get that Flamethrower is a very good thing for it, keeping it out of the below average category, but you will probably be better off just using the regular Clefable. So let's talk about Mega Alakazam. I think Mega Alakazam, our next mon, is incredibly underwhelming in this game. You know, Mega Alakazam, I almost typed in underwhelming. That's look it up in the dictionary, that's what it is. Alakazam here. So the two differences between these mons, we have 135, 120 on regular Alakazam. We go up to 175, 150. Now, the thing that holds this guy back is the fact that speed in this meta, in this game, just isn't that important. It's not a very good stat because it only really affects cooldowns. And then 175 is massive. It is so big. It even gets access to like stat boosting moves like Nasty Plot and Calm Mind. Problem is, this guy has no coverage moves. You have like Energy Ball. You're basically just stuck using psychic moves. So if we type in like special here, you'll see what actually comes up. Like you have like Charge Beam and stuff like that, I think, but it's not the same, right? So you get Focus Blast, you get Dazzle. You don't want to get up and close with these guys. You get different forms of like Psychic, Ghost, and Dark moves, but you can't hit Steals very well, right? And that's the meta right now. And with Yveltal running around, this guy just has a really, really hard time. This is another one of those perfect examples of you would just be better off with a Life Orb or Sash Alakazam, in my opinion. That being said, Mega Alakazam is really cool. I think that every game that I've used it and seen it used, I'm like, yo, this is fun. I really enjoy using this mon. But that being said, I know that it's like a meme mon, and it's one of those mons that just really kind of sticks out as hard to use and clunky in the Legends ZA meta. So maybe that'll change moving forward once we get the DLC. Who knows where the meta will shift, but I think right now the fact that like Steals and Darks and Fairies are premium, Alakazam just has like no real way to break into that. So let's talk about Mega Gengar next. Mega Gengar, another fan favorite mon here. So plugging in the Gengar here, you can see it goes from 130, 110 special attack all the way up to 170, right? And I think this is a good mon, right? I think this is definitely usable. It has poison coverage, which is going to let it pin Xerneas. It's a decent lead. So it gets like Sludge Bomb, it gets Sludge Wave. These are both optimal. I would say Sludge Bomb is probably just a little bit better, but it also gets access to like Thunderbolt. You see how it has these mons that have like the little different coverages are going to be really good. You have access to, like Shadow Ball and stuff here. And then some people even want to tech like Nasty Plot. Now I will say I do think that like regular Life Orb or Sash Gengar is better than Mega Gengar. But that being said, Mega Gengar is still very viable. Thunderbolt is one of the best moves in the game. It's homing, not that much stuff you can really do to get away from it. You're gonna have to force those swaps, and it's great into things like Zard, Gyarados. So many different mons take good damage from this thing. I think Mega Gengar is definitely a usable mon. I'm gonna put it in solid. I think it's just solid. I think the issue holding Mega Gengar back is that its movement speed is very slow. So it has to like get all up close next to something and then go into its animations, and a lot of its moves have pretty high startup animation. So like if your opponent wants to use Earthquake, which you are weak against, you kind of just lose, right? You have to swap, you have to do a bunch of different stuff, and it's just kind of hard to use it. It feels clunky. You can compare it to something like an Aegislash that just doesn't really feel like, it feels like it should be faster, its movement speed. It just feels a little clunky. So we're gonna put Gengar in the B tier. And we're talking about Mega Medicham next. Mega Medicham is a bit of a weird one, right? So Medicham has previously had the Pure Power ability, which would double its attack stat in any other turn-based Pokemon game. I think what they've done for Mega Medicham is just give it like a flat boost to its attack. So like this stat here is wrong. Just imagine like, I think it probably has like a 120-ish attack, or maybe even a little bit higher. I know Mawile is the same way as well, but the thing that this guy does is it has like close combat, it has Ice Punch. If we sort this by physical, this guy just gets a bunch of different like physical coverage moves, right? It has the elemental punches, it has access to like Zen Headbutt and things like that. It's just a solid mon. I think that like this sort of set right here, and then maybe it might even get like another steel type move besides like Bullet Punch would be kind of nice. But I also think that like it's Poison Jab, that's kind of cool for Zern and stuff like that. But I think people just go like Zen Headbutt here. It's one of those mons that is very similar to Pyroar, right, where you have to sink a lot of resources into Mega Evolving it, and then even when you do, it's underwhelming. It's hard checked up the wazoo by things like Yveltal. A lot of the rest of the meta just kind of like Medicham doesn't do anything to Metagross, and as you can see, Metagross is pretty good, so is Xerneas, so is Yveltal. You're starting to see a situation is if we compare like these top 3 teams right here, Medicham can only really KO this Garchomp, which is obviously just a support bomb for the Yveltal, right? And Garchomp can still like 1v1 a Medicham too if it gets like a Swords Dance boost. Let's take a look at this team's tournament here. Medicham would be good into like these, but then like Medicham can do anything against like Scarm, and then the Metagross is like Medicham just really struggles breaking through and getting those one-shots. Like Chandelure just completely walls it. Like there's nothing Medicham can really do, and that's why you're starting to see Chandelure pop up so much, because we're seeing so many good fighting types pop up. So that being said, where would I put it? I'd probably put it in the below average category. It's very similar to Pyroar, which like it needs its Mega, and even when you do Mega, it's not that amazing. I'd put it above Alakazam, though. I think it's better than Alakazam, but if you know any other cool tech around Medicham, change my mind. Feel free to change my mind. I just think it's one of those mons that really struggles and requires a lot of investment to make work, and that's just hard to use in a Xerneas-dominated and Yveltal-dominated meta. Let's take a look at Mega Manectric. I think Mega Manectric is really good, and I know we're pretty far into this list right now, but let me know if you think I should have been mentioning if these are like better alpha or better non-alpha. One of the reasons why I'm saying that is I see a lot of people using Manectric in alpha because they just catch an alpha Manectric, and it's definitely one of the mons that's better in a non-alpha situation. Generally, if you're using a special attacker, it's usually a better idea to have them non-alpha because they have a smaller hurt box, right? So it's like it's harder to actually target them, it's harder to actually get on them, and Mega Manectric is huge in the game for some reason. It's like the easiest thing to target in the world. It's a cool mon. I think it's much better in like, you know, turn-based Pokemon games, but Manectric is, you know, gets a decent boost to its special attack, and it gets a decent boost to Spadef and defense, but the issue with this thing is it's very one-dimensional. It gets access to Thunderbolt, right, which is great in Thunder and all the other electric moves. It gets access to Charge, I think, too. Yeah, Charge is good. And it also gets access to things like Overheat and Flamethrower, which is surprising. Just a little bit of coverage is nice. The problem with this guy is there's like Dragons, Xerneas, they just say no thanks. Metagross, even though you have Flamethrower, they just Earthquake you and you're dead, right? So not having like Ice coverage gives this guy a hard time. And then you have to run things like Protect and other weird moves to even like kind of get some value. I think this is another mon where like you're much better off just using a Life Orb or like Magnet or even like Sash or AV Manectric, I think, than this mon. But that being said, it's okay. I would put it at the top, very tippy top of the below average, because like electric coverage is really good. And if I have a Manectric and I try to Thunderbolt your Gyarados and your Gyarados swaps to an Excadrill, your Excadrill has to then try to gap close my Manectric. On that gap close, if you're already in Mega Manectric, you're going to use a plus move Flamethrower into the Excadrill and you can get the KO, right? So in that situation, Manectric is usable. The problem is if they swap that Gyarados out for a Garchomp, you have no answer to that Garchomp because you have no coverage for it, right? So I feel that it's very specific coverage, and I don't think it really goes into the usable category. It's going to be a little bit, you know, underwhelming every single time you're playing this mon, especially if you don't have especially if you're using an alpha variant. So let's take a look at Gardevoir. I think Gardevoir was a mon that I really thought was going to fall off, like hard fall off, in Ranked Battle Season 2. It gets a decent boost to its special attack, 40 points. It doesn't get any defense, and it gets some good Spadef, but like this mon has just been held really, really strong. It gets things like Calm Mind. It gets the Thunderbolt coverage that we want. It gets, I don't think it gets, yeah, it does get Moonblast, and then the last move, some people like to just go Psyshock or Psychic or something like that. Sometimes they even go Dazzle and go for Double Fairy. I really thought this thing would fall off because it shares same typing with Xerneas, so everyone over-teching for Xerneas would just, you know, automatically break this Gardevoir. And Gardevoir and Xerneas are like so similar. They have like Stab Fairy and Thunderbolt. They're like the same mon. That being said, I've been surprised by how many Gardevoirs we still see pop up. You know, if we compare Gardevoir, which is right here, to something like a Xerneas, right? Xerneas is a really good mon. Xerneas has 131, 98 off of 126, so it's super bulky, right? Gardevoir is a much less HP, but it's stronger. It's actually stronger than Xerneas. And because Geomancy doesn't give a +2 boost, it just gives a really, really long +1. Like a +1 Gardevoir is actually stronger than Xerneas, right? And so it's one of those mons where I'm just like, huh, this mon is still like definitely better. Like that, this Thunderbolt will just KO things. It's really good. Now the value in Xerneas is it gets to do all these things and be almost as good as Guard while still being able to hold an item. So like if they're Life Orb Xerneas or Expert Belt Xerneas, it's stronger than the Guard. But I do think Gardevoir is still very, very usable. And the fact that it stabs those Psychics gives like additional coverage for, you know, like weird mons. Again, things like Emboar, things like fighting types and stuff like that that are starting to pop up. So I think like, for example, like Gardevoir would have like, it's so weird to say it, but like a better matchup into something like a Chandelure, or a much better matchup into something like a Gengar than a Xerneas would have. So that being said, where would I put it? I would put it probably near the bottom of the very good category. It's still very usable. You see a lot of people kind of just splashing it around, and it's one of those mons that I'm always pleasantly surprised to see it do well. But then like when it does do well, you're like, oh, that on that core, that makes sense, right? So it's a cool mon. I definitely like it. And it's probably just going to be like a really, really good mon for the like longevity of this game, especially after we move away from having Xerneas and Yveltal legal. I could see Gardevoir just going up maybe even into the amazing tier spot just because it's a really solid mon. And I think that it has like a lot of good tools. So talking about Scolipede next. Scolipede, I just got done making a video with Scolipede recently on YouTube, and it gets really good coverage, right? If we take a look at these different stats, it gets a 40 boost to attack. Look at that boost to defense. Defense is so good, even in this format built around Xerneas. It's so good. And a good boost to Spadef. This thing gets all the right you know, base stats you could actually want. And it has good coverage, right? It gets Swords Dance, it gets Earthquake, it gets Gunk Shot, right? These are all really, really good coverage moves. And then like, I also think it gets like, doesn't get Lunge. What's the other move that I like using this thing? Mega Horn, that's what it is. Yeah. So it's like, this is amazing coverage. 120, 120, 100 popular typing. I think this mon will actually start to see more play. It definitely is relying on Mega. You can't really utilize it outside of the Mega. And the reason why you're not seeing it be at the very top of the game is because things like Mega Skarmory just say you don't get to play. Things like Garchomp give it a really, really hard time. Just because like you can't hit it for super effective. You have to hit it for neutral, and they're using better stabs than you are off like a much higher base attack stat. Garchomp has like that 170 plus. They usually have like damage boosting items and megas. So it's hard to use. I would say Metagross also kind of keeps it down because Metagrosses sometimes do still carry like Psycho Cut and Zen Headbutt. So the fact that like it sucks that like the rest of the meta is built around mons that enable Xerneas, so stuff that like actually gives Scolipede a hard time, makes it hard to use. That doesn't mean the fact that like it might not be really good in future seasons. I'm gonna put it in the solid category. I'm gonna put it above Gengar. I'm gonna put it above Emboar. I'm not going to put it above Feraligatr, though. I think Feraligatr is still really solid. But yeah, Scolipede is a really, really good mon. It also gets access to things like Infestation. So you can like trap someone off a lead Scolipede and then pivot to something like your Zern or your Yveltal or your other mons that have like your Life Orb or your damage boosting items and pin them right up. So I think it's going to be very, very solid. And yeah, I think it's just a really, really good mon. So let's talk about Mega Gallade here. We're going to talk about Mega Gallade. And man, this list is taking a while. Holy moly. This is another reminder. Go drop a sub. I'm here for a hot minute. But let me know if you guys want to see more tier list content. We're doing our absolute best over here. We're also making a bunch of different YouTube shorts. So we're doing our absolute best to be consistent on YouTube. And let's get into Gallade. So Gallade's one of those mons that I actually really like Gallade. Here we go. So the differences between them is you gain 40 more attack, you gain 30 on your defense, and you don't gain any more on your Spadef. I think that honestly, regular Gallade is probably better with like Rocky Helmet, even like an Expert Belt, Life Orb, any sort of damage increasing item. It could be very good. I think one of the values in Gallade is it's one of those mons that gets like all the elemental punches, right? So you get all the different punch moves here. You get close combat, Zen Headbutt, things like that. The way that I like to play this mon is honestly just Light Screen Reflect, right? And then you have like Ice Punch, and then you also I've been teching in Brick Break here. It's one of the best Brick Breakers in the game. The cool thing about both Gallade and Mega Gallade is that they have a very fast run speed. So they get right up to where they actually want to use their moves as fast and effectively as possible. So there's not a lot of like clunky time like you would have like on something like a Mega Gengar. That being said, you can tell right away that this moveset really struggles into like Metagross, Xerneas, dominated games. Chandelure, like you can't even hit these things, right? Like you cannot hit the Gallade not doing anything against any of these mons. So it's one of those mons that like is kind of just hard to use right now, but I would definitely put it in the solid category. It definitely has a higher skill ceiling. I think it's better than Gengar right now, but it's not better than Emboar. That's where I would put it. You could make arguments for putting it in the usable category, but I feel that like the fact that it can be a screen setter, it can just have a lot of good coverage. It does still get access to things like Swords Dance. You can play it multiple different ways, and so you just got to find the right way to play it. I would say also as well the fact that it stabs fighting moves is like a double-edged sword, because you can pick up good KOs against mons that are actually weak against fighting, like Excadrills, like Audinos, Kangaskhan's and Lucarios and stuff like that. But at the same time, you now have a fairy weakness to Xerneas. So it can be a little bit dicey, and you also have to avoid Yveltal too, because that Oblivion Wing will absolutely tear you apart. So let's start talking about another mon that has a fighting weakness. I think a lot of people thought Mega Houndoom would be more viable than it actually is. It gets 30 boosts to its special attack, against 40 boosts to its defense, and a small boost to its BDF as well. That being said, it's one of those mons that actually, is much better in turn-based Pokemon, because it's really built around enabling its special attack with solar power. 140 is not high enough. It's very similar to Emboar in these situations. It's higher than Emboar, and it has a better secondary stab in Dark Pulse, right? So you can have like this set right here with Heat Wave and Dark Pulse, like that's solid, that's good. But then the problem is like you don't really have any other moves, right? You have like Nasty Plots, Shadow Ball, that's not good. Sludge Bomb, like that's fine, but the problem is like Sludge Bomb into Xerneas. So I've seen so many people say Houndoom is such a good check into Xerneas because you kill it with Sludge Bomb, and you don't, right? Because the Geomancy boosts their Spadef, and you just don't really get anything out of this mon. It's a humongous like mega like energy sink, and it's just hard to make work. So where would we put it? It's definitely in the below average category. I would say it's probably better than Pyro though, because it has like 11 more base special attack and a better secondary stab. Like they're both weak to fighting, they're both fire types, but I think Houndoom has just a little bit more going for it. It can be a decent swap too for a neutrality as well for things like Psychic, if you're going to be blocking Psychic moves. So like Houndoom Heracross could have a lot of value. Heracross would cover up for Houndoom's, weakness to fighting, weakness to ground and stuff like that. Houndoom would cover up for your weakness to Psychic, weakness to fire moves and stuff like that. So I feel like there's definitely something that can be done if you have the right partners, but I would definitely still put it a little bit below average. Let's take a look at Altaria. Now, Altaria is a unique mon. You can see it actually got second place in this tournament right here, and it was the perfect set. I think it's a really good example of like the innovation that comes from like tournament play as opposed to just a ladder. It was actually a mixed set. So Altaria, and I've actually been like messing with Altaria for a bit. It gets 20 boost to its defense, 40 boost to its attack, which is very significant, and its special attack, and then its BDF stays the same. On paper, this thing looks terrible, right? But you see how we gain fairy typing here at the cost of cost of flying, right? So we actually use this guy for, if we take a look back at this team, is you use it to be a ground pivot for your Ampharos, and you use it to have like that fairy pivot for things like, Garchomp that would also want to pin your Ampharos. So, and then it becomes a dragon that can pin other dragons. It's also a good pivot for something like Skarmory, which has like, that weakness to like fire and electric. If you're already mega evolved, you have just dragon fairy typing, you're a great pivot into those typings. So I think it was really cool. And the set that was used, if I recall correctly, actually was a mix sweeper set. It had play rough for gap closing, right? And then it had access to, I think like Moonblast. It might have had like a couple, I had I think it had either Flamethrower or Heat Wave for things like Scizor. So like this beats Scizor, this beat all the other, standard things you might want to beat. It might have even had something else that, it might have had like Earthquake or something weird. I think it had some other weird move, maybe even like a stat boosting move or something. But I remember seeing the fact that it had like some investment. I think it was like, even this right here, 20 investment was enough to like KO something with like play rough. It must have been something like, you know, this KO's Garchomp or something weird like this. So I think it was cool. Oh, someone just dropped a sub. Someone just dropped a sub. We're not even live right now. This is just the you know, recording software that we use to record videos. But someone dropped a sub on the Twitch channel. They're probably getting ready for the tournament that's going to happen in a few hours. But yeah, I think it was a really cool set. Like, they kind of just ran it, you know, up like this, and their set was like this, and I think that's actually like so cool. You have like a good coverage, moves into a lot of different stuff, and this is great. Like, I think one of the reasons why they did so well with it is they just farmed these Scizors with Heat Wave. The Scizors thought they could come and do stuff, and you just farmed them with Heat Wave, and then you had like gap closers for like the play rough here, stuff like that. You play rough, Mega Evolve, Moonblast, like, oh, it's so good. So I think like Altaria, the fact that it gains a 40 boost to its attack and special attack is actually really cool, and it's a usable mon for sure. But the problem is, like, you know, lightning can only strike so many times. Like, how often is going to happen? You need the perfect teammates. I'm going to put it at the bottom of the usable tier for now. I just think it's a really cool example of like innovation, showing that like even something that is, you know, down in just the usable list can get like second in a tournament. That was like a stacked tournament of like 32 players. It's definitely a testament to like the players' creativity. So let's take a look at Audino here. Mega Audino. I know a lot of people have been actually wanting to see me use Mega Audino for a little bit. So Audino gets 40 boost to its defense, 20 boost to its special attack, and 40 to its SPDF. This is actually really cool. I think it gets a lot of good stats. The problem with Audino is that while it gets all these boosts, you actually you're not able to do anything with them. So you get access to things like, and you gain Fairy typing, which is actually very nice. So you have Ice Beam, and you have Thunderbolt, right? And you have Moonblast, and these are all real. Oh, you don't have Moonblast, sorry. I think you have Dazzle, right? Yeah. So you have all these boosts with Calm Mind, but you don't actually KO anything. Like a Calm Mind, full special attack, like Ice Beam, this doesn't KO Garchomp every time because it's only 80, right? So it's still really, really, you know, hard to make work. So it's a little bit too weak. And so in a game where you have to like get KOs and, you know, get first place in your groups by the amount of KOs that you get, Audino, while not getting KO'd, can't really like bully people out of a game. It kind of just sits there and tries to snipe KOs. I think it also gets access to, I think, like Flamethrower too, right? Yeah, because it gets good coverage. But like if we were to compare it to like a Clefable or like a Gardevoir, the Gardevoir and the Clefable have the special attack to actually threaten people away. The Audino says like, I'm gonna Mega, and it's like, people are just like, I'll just go fight something else. And then Mega Evolving to gain Fairy typing and just gain the same weakness to a stat that like Xerneas already has, it's probably not optimal. You could put it in the usable category, but like honestly, it's probably a little bit below average. I would put it near the top of the below average category, just because again, it's not that great, and you just don't do a ton of damage with it. I do think you can add really cool teams. Like I think Audino and Chandelure personally go very well together. Chandelure's weak against ghost moves, and you can pivot to Audino with its normal typing to like block that, and then Mega Evolve, and then do like good damage to things like Garchomp and Gyarados, which would give your Chandelure problems, right? And then your last spot can be like anything you want in that situation. The problem is like that's a huge mega sink. You have to already be like massively winning and have a lot of mega resources to do that with. So like just on paper that seems really cool, but in practice it seems like that would be something that would not work out more times than it would. So that's where I'm going to put it in the below average category, but it's definitely in the top of the below average category. Mega Lopunny. Mega Lopunny is a little bit sad that it doesn't have its ability anymore. Like, you can actually just completely wall this thing with a ghost type. It doesn't have Scrappy. So it gains a humongous boost to its attack stat, a little bit in defense, and that's about it. It gains a lot in its speed, which again is not a very good type in this game. The cool thing that it does though is it gets stab on fighting, so it can now use things like close combat and actually get KOs. I also think it does get access to Ice Punch, so like this has the high enough attack stat to actually still OHKO things like Garchomp. This is high enough to actually KO things like Gyarados, and then you have like Giga Impact. Like this is how I would play this mon and just make it like a mon that you could probably go 1-for-1 every single time. I think this is actually a lot better than people give it credit for. I think more people should actually try out this thing. That being said, it's at best like a 1-for-1. I would say it's probably near the bottom of the usable category because it does require that mega, and similar to things like Emboar, it kind of needs the Mega to even be able to do that, and you might be better off just with like a Life Orb variant on this thing. But it's a cool mon. You're gonna get like 1 or 2 KOs a game with this thing if you're utilizing it as your Mega, and what you're kind of hoping for is the fact that your opponent might not really know what you're trying to do, right? Your opponent might be like, oh, that's Lopunny, like I'll be fine, and then they eat like a massive Giga Impact, and then like you go and like Ice Punch something else and you go 2 for 1, right? I think that's probably the best way you're gonna be able to play this thing. But yeah, definitely a usable mon for sure. All right, Banette. I think Banette is another mon that I also really like a lot. I've used it a lot on my side channel. So if we take a look at Banette here, it gains 50 boost to its attack, 10 boost to its defense, a little bit to special attack, which is not needed, and then like 20 more to its Def, which is good. I think it's actually really cool. Banette is a cool mon because it gets Swords Dance, and then its whole set is actually built around like Phantom Force, like gap closing with Phantom Force, and then you also get things like Gunk Shot for things like Xerneas, and one of the few mons that just get Gunk Shot. And then you get what is it? You get Shadow Sneak, right? I think that like this is a cool set, and if you don't want to run Gunk Shot, you get access to like I think like some people just put like Shadow Punch there or something else. Like let's just throw up Physical and see what else you really get on this guy. So you get access to like Knockoff. I think that's another one that's pretty decent on this mon. So like Knockoff is probably a decent suggestion for just like additional coverage moves. The problem with this guy is you still miss a lot of KOs even if you have that Swords Dance boost. You're not one-shotting something like a Xerneas. But against like a Metagross, this is a very, very cool set. And you can see like the meta has like Metagrosses up the wazoo. Chandelure is another very popular Pokemon. And Phantom Force is good. And this is one of the highest, I think this is the strongest like Ghost Phantom Force in the game. So it's very, very usable, I think. Mid-game, you bust this guy out, go for that Swords Dance, drop the Mega. You're going to get 1 or 2 KOs easy peasy. So where would I put it? It's definitely in the usable category. I would put it right above Altaria. It's not as good as Clefable. Like Clefable and Meganium are so much better outside of their Mega variants, having like screens. There's so much more utility they bring to the table. You see that these things are all really like one-trick ponies. And the fact that you can use like things like Clefable and Meganium in multiple different ways means I feel that like they just bring a lot more to the table earlier. So let's talk about Camerupt. Now, I think Camerupt is a really, really, really good example of a Pokemon that just gets so much better in this Ranked Battle Season 2 format. Its Fire typing lets it block Xerneas. It's a really good pivot for, like, if you have, like, a Gyarados you need to get out of there, or any bulky Water types you need to get out of there. If you have, like, a Yveltal on the board, and they're going to be going for a Thunderbolt, you pivot into your Ground typing Camerupt. And then Camerupt gets, like, a bunch of really good coverage, because it's one of the only Fire types in the game that can pin other Fire types, like Chandelure. So let's take a look at Camerupt here. It gains 30 defense, 20 attack, which you're not really using, gains 40 special attack, and 35 Spadef. That's actually really good. I've seen sets that people are utilizing on this guy are actually like Focus Energy. I've seen people using like Focus Energy. I know it doesn't say, there it is. Focus Energy right there. And then they're going for like a bunch of different other stuff. So I've seen them also go for like, it's not Calm Mind. I think it's actually just like Curse on this thing. And they just like absolutely like blow people up with like earthquakes and, you know, gap closers and stuff like that. I think it's a really cool move. It can be built physical or special. It has good coverage into, like, let's look at the meta. It's good into Metagross. It's usable into Yveltal. Yveltal doesn't do anything back to it. It's not great against Garchomp, right? But it's good into Metagross Zern. It's great into Chandelure. It's good into Zard. Let's take a look at this tournament over here. It's good into, you know, Excadrill in some situations. It's good into Skarmory. It's good into the Metagrosses. It's good into the Shandies. You're starting to see a situation where it can provide a defensive pivot into a lot of different stuff and then still repin and stay on the board. So I think it's definitely usable. Definitely better in this format than it was in Season 1. We're going to put it near the bottom of the solid category for now. I think that Mega Gengar might be just a little bit better because it gets access to Thunderbolt, honestly. But Mega Camerupt is good. And also, Gengar is just a little bit better outside of Mega, versus Camerupt definitely requires itself to be in the Mega form to be usable. But that being said, I think it's a very solid mon. And speaking of solid mons, let's start talking about Mega Excadrill. Holy moly, Mega Excadrill is kind of a beast. So plug in Excadrill. It gains 30 attack. It gains 40 defense. And then that's about it, right? So I think it's so strong, right? It gets access to Swords Dance. It gets access to Drill Run. It gets access to Dig. It gets access to Earthquake. And it's one of the best alphas in the game for just using massive Earthquakes. I think a lot of people here just go Iron Head just because Xerneas is still so prevalent. Some people want to go Metal Claw as well. You can even go things like Rock Slide or even just a Dig. Triple ground coverage is good. And outside of Mega, it can still pick up those big KOs. I think it's a very, very, very solid mon. And, you know, against like a lot of the meta, It's great in a Metagross. It's good in a Zern. It can, you know, trade with so many different things. It's one of the, like, the mons, in my opinion, that actually, like, gatekeeps, like, so many of these other mons from doing well. Let's take a look at what's in the bottom tier. Excadrill can one-shot every single one of these Pokemon. And that's just because Earthquake is just so good in this game. It's just so good. Excadrill can also one-shot all of these Pokemon. Maybe not the Meganium, right? So Excadrill's really good. I'm actually going to put Excadrill in the amazing category because it gets the massive stab EQ, great on Alpha. It's a good pivot for both Xerneas and Yveltal, utilizing its Steel typing to block Poison and Steel moves, and then it has its Ground typing to block, you know, electric attacks from like Yveltal, or like into a Yveltal, right? So it can be a perfect partner for either of those restricteds. I think some of the things that might hold Excadrill back are the fact that it has a ground weakness, it has a fighting weakness, it has terrible Spadef, but you're gonna get like 1 or 2 KOs every single time you like Mega Evolve this thing. It gets all the right moves in all the right places. I think it's really good. I think honestly, as far as like S tier mons go, it's probably gonna be near the bottom of the S tier, but it's a really, really good mon. It's, you know, probably only going to be better as like this game's history moves forward, and it's a great addition to any team. Very, very cool mon, very easy to use as well. Multiple gap closers, dig, drill run, stuff like that. It's just a solid mon overall. And then we have Mega Garchomp. It's funny, Mega Garchomp was right after Mega Excadrill. Holy moly. So let's plug in Garchomp, right? Now Garchomp is honestly probably the best of all of these mons outside of their mega form, right? Out of all of them, right? Maybe Metagross might be able to hold a candle to it, but like Garchomp, you can slap a Yachi Berry, you can slap an Assault Vest, you can slap a, you know, Roselia Berry, Haban Berry, you can slap a Life Orb. There's so many things you can do with Garchomp. It's honestly like the most broken Pokemon. It has great movement speed, has all good coverage, multiple gap closers and dig, big Earthquake, Dragon Rush, so many different things. And Mega Garchomp just gets 40 more attack, 20 more defense, and 10 more Spadef. And even you can make a special one if you want. It gets more special attack than like most of the other Megas on this list. It gets more special attack than Mega Altaria has, right? So it's really, really solid. I think that Mega Garchomp is really, really good. So one thing, let's compare some of these lists. So if I want to go Mega Garchomp and you have Mega Metagross, I can one-shot you with Earthquake. And if you want to go Yveltal and I'm Mega Garchomp, I will outvalue your Yveltal with my Garchomp because we're both dealing neutral damage to each other. Like Dragon Rush plus Stone Edge would just KO that thing. And against a Garchomp right there, the fact that I'm Mega would let me live through your Dragon Rush, I would win. Same thing goes through here. I can Earthquake your Metagross. I can go Earthquake Stone Edge to KO your Zern if I'm already Mega'd. You know, if you're already Geo'd, like I'm gonna have a problem. But like the fact that I think a lot of people think, oh, Garchomp's not good because Xerneas exists. Xerneas takes like 75 to 80% from that Earthquake from Mega Garchomp. And Mega Garchomp, look at the rest of this list, like EQ City, Stone Edge EQ City, EQ City. Like Earthquake just kind of comes in and says, no. One of the only mons that really stops Mega Garchomp is stuff like Mega Skarmory, because you can't really hit it for neutral very easily. You have Stone Edge, but Skarmory is able to kind of force out the Mega Garchomp. And the fact that Mega Garchomp is so much bulkier than regular Garchomp means you eat those Ice Beams and those Ice Punches just a little bit better. So Mega Garchomp, in my opinion, is an S tier mon in this format. Regular Garchomp is also so good. I think that's one of the reasons why it's S, is because it's one of those mons that's just like regular Garchomp can do all the things Mega Garchomp does, but then Mega Garchomp is like a get out of jail free card that also just like gets 3 KOs after it Megas. It just really leans into the fact that Earthquake and the fact that there are no Levitate users in this game means that you can honestly just spam Earthquake in this game and get multiple KOs. And it just means both these mons are just really, really broken for this format. So that being said, let's start talking about Sableye here. I think Sableye is okay. You know, we did that Mono Ghost tournament where, you know, I think all of the top 4 teams had Sableye in them. If we plug in Sableye here, you can look at the differences in the stats here. Mega Sableye gets like 50 boosts to its defense. It gets a lot to its special defense as well. It gets a little bit more special attack, a little bit more attack. It's a usable mon. I actually think like the best way to play this mon is honestly like, I think it's Calm Mind. I think it's Calm Mind with access to like Dark Pulse, Shadow Ball. You could also still play this guy physical though. That's what I used in the tournament. I played it with Bulk Up, I think. I played it with Bulk Up, and then I played it with like Phantom Force Gap Closers, right? With like Shadow Sneak and stuff like that. You can go Shadow Claw if you want. Shadow Sneak and like Knockoff for Dual Stab. So like this is how I played it. This is really good against like Metagross and stuff like that. So it has situations in which it can be good. I think people also use it with like scope lens on regular Sableye. We're talking about megas right now. It's an okay mon. The fact that it has that fairy weakness means Xerneas kind of just eats it up. A lot of these other mons hit it for neutral or better. So it's it's not usable in this format. Xerneas locks it too hard. It's okay in a Metagross, but like I would put it near the top of the below average category. One of the things it does have going for it is after you mega, it has a pretty decent movement speed, so it kind of runs around the map pretty quick, and it has a pretty small hitbox and hurtbox if you're using a non-alpha form. So there's that going for it. But that being said, it's one of those mons that just kind of like, Xerneas pins this guy just a little bit too much, and if you have to use it physical, all of like the best mons in the meta are ones that are super chonky physical side, and like Garchomp would like outtrade this like every single time, and it's just kind of hard to use. So let's talk about Victreebel. Mega Victreebel, holy moly. Where is this tournament report? I actually got top cut in the last tournament with Mega Victreebel, so I feel as the player with the highest standing out of any Victreebel player in any tournament, I am the world's authority on this Pokemon, and I can say with full assurance this mon's terrible. It gets 20 boost to its attack, 20 to its defense, 35 in its special attack, and 25 in its Spadef. But realistically, like regular Victreebel with probably Life Orb is better. You can just use better moves. Mega Victreebel is cool. I think it's funny. It kind of just hops around the map, but it doesn't really get anything that like a Life Orb wouldn't be better than here. It's a really good example of that, like Life Orb variants on this thing. You can build it physical or special. Unfortunately, it doesn't get access to Gunk Shot, right? I think it not getting Gunk Shot really locks out its ability to be a physical sweeper. You have to use Poison Jab. And so Poison Jab from Mega Victreebel doesn't even come close to KOing Zern. Even like a critical hit full adamant one of these does not KO Zern. And so that's bad. One of the only cool things this guy actually gets is like Infest, which is a really, really usable move in this game for trapping people and then pivoting out. But there are other better infestation users. We already talked about Scolipede and stuff like that before. It's a fun mon, but like poison grass typing is just kind of hard to use, and you get O-code by like neutral earthquakes from things like Garchomp and Excadrill too. There's so many fire mons in the meta too. You have such a big hurt box on this thing when you mega too, especially using an alpha form, that like there's no way you don't get like clipped by like any sort of AoE move. So I would definitely put it in the below average category. And is it really like the last one? It might be. I used this thing in the tournament. It was so bad. I just don't think it has any real redeeming qualities that like these guys wouldn't be able to do better. Like at least with Mega Alakazam, you have a massive special attack. You can hit good things for neutral. Medicham has good coverage. Pyroar and Houndoom have like fire typing is just better than grass typing in this meta right now. So I would put it at the bottom. I think it's the bottom of, and it's still usable. Like I got top cut with it, but it's just really, really rough to use, I think. That's my opinion on Mega Victreebel. Changed my mind. But I'm going to talk about Mega Mawile next, and are we about halfway through? Holy moly, this is the longest video anyone's ever seen. Mega Mawile coming in hot here. Mega Mawile similar to things like Medicham. Let's just plug in some other slots here. So Mawile here. So it's similar to Medicham in which it has like that huge power ability, which would normally like double its attack stat. Honestly, the way this mon's going to work is it just has the same base attack as I think Haxorus, which I believe is like a 147 or something. Yeah, 147. So I think that's how strong it is. If you're trying to do Mega Mawile calcs, I think they're about the same. But it's a good mon. I think it's actually really cool because it gets like Play Rough as a gap closer, right? It gets access to like Iron Head if you want to use Iron Head. It gets access to like Swords Dance and stuff like that. So I think it's a cool mon. I've been having a good time with it. I think does it also get Curse? No, I don't know. I don't think it gets Curse. I think I had Swords Dance when I played it. I'm trying to remember what the last move that I used. I think I used Knockoff here when I played it. And I actually felt pretty good with it. I used it in a tour a few days ago. And it's a solid mon. It will get the big KOs when needed, but it's 100% reliant on Mega. You have to be Mega to actually get it to work. Regular Mawile does not get those KOs. Actually, I used Ice Punch on it. I used Ice Punch just for more coverage versus Garchomp. And you actually can KO the Garchomp with the Ice Punch. So I think it's a solid mon, but I would put it probably at the bottom of usable. You would think that it would be a much better mon because it has a good matchup defensively into both Xerneas and Yveltal, right? You're able to, block Xerneas's fairy moves with your steel typing and then repin it with the Iron Head, and you're able to block both of Yveltal's stabs being flying and dark with your steel and fairy typing and then repin it with Play Rough. But the problem is every single team has Metagross, Garchomp, Excadrill, Chandelure, like all those mons one-shot your Mawile. Easy peasy. Like Mega Skarmory, like drill runs you into a new oblivion. Scizor gives you like a big hard time too, just because you can't really hit it for like anything. So like good steals give Mega Mawile a really, really hard time. It's usable, but you're better off just using like a Metagross, in my opinion, in a lot of different situations. All right, so let's talk about Absol. Oh man, I wonder how many people watched that Mega Absol short that we made. I made a short, right? I made a video talking about Mega Absol. It's all the way down here. It's our very first team building guide. Got 15,000 views talking about Mega Absol, showing you guys how I like to build it, how I've always built it. And that's special Absol. If we go to shorts here, we made this short here that got like 122,000 views. I think it also got like similar views on like Twitter and Instagram too. Like it's the viral, you know, Absol set that like is sweeping the nation over here. I'm getting so many people just talking to me about it, sending me DMs saying like, that's not how Absol works. It's a physical attacker. But like, honestly, Absol is better built as a special attacker than a physical attacker. It only gets a 20 boost to its attack, and it's the fact that it just stabs dark means, okay, you can go for Night Slash or knockoff, but you don't KO anything. Even if you're like super effective, they're probably going to live because all the mons you're hitting for super effective, like let's say you hit Metagross with like a Night Slash, they're going to live because they have like 140 base defense. So it's just not optimal to use a physical attacker Darkmon like this. The fact that you get a lot to your special attack. You get like a lot, you get like 40 to it, and he gets amazing coverage. Like the set that I used is Calm Mind. You have Calm Mind, you have Ice Beam, you have Thunderbolt. These are some of the best moves in the game, and then you could even put like a Flamethrower there, or you can go with your Stab Dark Pulse, right? And this will actually OHKO the Mega Metagross. And I saw so many people saying like, this set would never work, the lobbies are faked. I recorded all the games live. I think everyone can go check the videos for it. This mon works. I think people just can't imagine not using a base 150 attack stat, but like you get better coverage, Calm Mind, plus moves on all these, you KO everything. It has one of the best coverages in the game. What I actually compare Absol to, this is going to break your guys' brain for how you're going to realize how viable this thing is. Take a look at this stat set, right? 115, 115, let's just use it there because it is there, and let's compare it to something like, it's a Latios. Right? You say, Latios has more special attack, but, well, does it? I know Latios isn't in the game, but they're very similar mons. So Absol will get to a 361, and then a modest Absol will get to 361, and a timid Latios, which would be in previous games built something like this, gets this. And they get the same moves, you know? Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Stab, right? These are the same thing. Like, these are the same mon. They're built like the same way. And would anyone say Latios is bad if Latios was in this game? No, they wouldn't. They would not say that Latios is bad. So I don't see why people really sleep on this thing. I think the fact that like Yveltal and Xerneas are legal in this meta compared to what it was in Season 1 give it a hard time. But like this guy can lock out Garchomp, it can lock out Metagross, it can lock out Chandelure, it can lock out Mega Skarmory. You're starting to see situations where like, oh wait, that's actually like really, really good. If you just have a team that has good Xerneas coverage, you just win with Mega Absol. And it's true, you could just win with Mega Absol. I'm going to put it in the solid category because it does require it to be a Mega to be usable, but I'm going to put it pretty high in the solid category, and I think people are going to disagree with that, but the proof is right there. You got to try it. This mon like absolutely slaps, and it's a really good example of like, innovation, EV training, like building, like enabling other like off meta, meme niche strats to win. And I think you just got to be a little more open-minded, but it definitely has the coverage. Like if you compare it to something like the Clefable or the Audino, like it just has the right special attack stat. It has all the right moves. And I feel like that Dark Pulse stab is what really puts it over the top. Because you still get that big dark coverage, but it's targeting the special stat as opposed to the physical stat, which means you can one-shot the Shandies, one-shot the Metagrosses and stuff like that. All right. Mega Lucario, another fan favorite who I actually used in yesterday's tournament. I used it in yesterday's tournament on my Victreebel team. I got 9th with it. Also the 10th place player and also the 1st place player used a Sash Lucario. So it's actually like Lucario's starting to kind of creep in and see some play. It has steel coverage for things like Xerneas. Fighting coverage is usable. It gets access to like the elemental punches. It's a decent mon. But let's plug in Lucario here. So both forms of Lucario are good. You have 110, 115 on its base offenses versus its Mega goes 145, 140. And so this guy's usable. It gets close combat. I use close combat. I think Brick Break might be just a little bit better because it's a much faster animation. But Brick Break's good. It gets access to like Ice Punch. It gets access to Bullet Punch too, but I think Extreme Speed is also very good with like Swords Dance. I think it's definitely a usable bomb, but it also gets like access to like really cool stuff like Earthquake, right? It can be an Earthquake user if you need it to be. It's a cool mon. It has a lot of weaknesses, like notably ground weaknesses. Like if you get your pinky toes clipped by like an Earthquake from like an Alpha Garchomp or an Excadrill, you will get one-shotted. Same thing goes for Heat Waves from Chandelures. That being said, it's solid. I was using it with Iron Head here, or sorry, Iron Head, Iron Tail to do the damage to the Xerneases, and you can KO some Xerneases when you're Mega using plus moves. I think it's definitely usable, but it falls. It's better than Mawile, I would say, but it's not better than Lopunny. I think Lopunny just has like much better things going for it. The fact that it's just a normal fighting type means you're not going to get OHKO by Earthquake like you will with Lucario. Lucario is weak to fire, fighting, ground. It's weak to pretty much everything that's popular in the meta right now, and that just kind of holds it back just a little bit. So we're going to talk about Mega Slowbro next. Holy moly, Mega Slowbro. And I think Mega Slowbro is actually like super slept on. I think it's one of those mons that I do not know why people are not using this thing. It's so strong. Let's plug it in here. So Slowbro. So if we take a look at the difference between Slowbro and Mega Slowbro, you can see it gains 70 base defense. It gains 30 base special attack. That is ridiculous, right? This guy gets really good coverage too. So I like to play it with Calm Mind, and then it gets access to like Hydro, which is solid, right? It gets access to like Psychic if you want those options, but it also gets access to like Flamethrower, right? This thing is like a solid check to Metagross, and I don't know why people aren't using it. I think it's just really, really good. It gets so much good coverage. You can go Fire Blast and stuff like that too. It's just so good. It gets Ice Beam too if you wanted to go cut the Psychic for the Ice Beam for the better Dragon matchup. I think it's actually really, really good. I don't know why people aren't using this thing. I want to say it might get dual screens too. Oh my, it does. Yeah, this thing is like all over the place. It's such a good check into like Metagross. It does struggle with Yveltal, obviously, but like all it takes is like a Fairy Pivot. Like I think a team of like Xerneas, Mega Slowbro could be really, really good with like, you know, a good Earthquake user on the last slot. So that being said, where would I put it? I would put it, I'm going to put it in the very good category, but at the back. I definitely think it's very, very solid. I think more people should be using it. I think that people used it at the very start of the game, and then they stopped. One of the reasons why Slowbro is just so good in this game is because speed is just not an important stat. It doesn't increase your movement speed, it increases your cooldowns, right? So the fact that like it's foddering all of the speed stat to like boost all these other stats means you just have like way more base stats that are actually usable than like most other mons in the game. I think it's so strong right now, and like Hydro Pump is just massively underrated in the meta. Hydro Pump hits all these things for like neutral better. There's not that many people running Gyarados anymore. You don't see that much water mons, so just being able to rip a Hydro Pump from across the map, you KO so many things. Case in point, we saw someone win yesterday's tournament with a Klotzer just because like water types are premium, and I think people are going to start to put some more respect on those guys. I think a lot of people also stopped using Glaceons nearing the end of Season 1 once Xerneas became legal, because everyone was just spamming like Fire and Steel coverage, and so it really locked out a lot of those Glaceons that would have been able to freeze dry your Slowbros. So I think it's a really solid mon. The fact that also it's like Calm Mind, can be a bunch of different cool stuff. Very underrated, very slept on, and I have a couple cool Slowbro teams coming your way very soon. So let's talk about Mega Sharpedo. I think it's another mon that it's probably not great. So we take a look at these two. It only gains a 20 boost to its attack. It gains 30 on its defense, a little bit in its special attack, a little bit in Spadef. It's one of those mons, though, that honestly is just better off being like a Life Orb mon. I think like a Life Orb Sharpedo is just a little bit better. Yeah, it gets access to like Crunch, right? Yeah, it gets access to things like Waterfall. It might even get Swords Dance, I don't remember. It doesn't, right? It might get Curse. Doesn't. Holy moly. I haven't played a lot with this, but every single time I've seen this thing, I've Thunderbolted it. Every single time. It always gets KO'd, even if I don't stab the Thunderbolt. And like this moveset right here, like this isn't your mom. This is like a really, really bad Gyarados with an additional Fairy weakness, right? And it just doesn't really get the right moves. It gets Ice Fang, it gets Poison Jab. You know, that's not great. I would say we have a new lowest mon here. I would say this thing is just really, really hard to use. It has no bulk, and even like a neutral earthquake just KOs this guy. It's not worth the investment. It's one of those mons just really, really like massively underwhelming. It doesn't have the coverage, and yeah, I'm gonna rank it low. That's where we're gonna put it. Let's talk about Mega Electross. Mega Electross. Good mon. I always type this thing's name incorrect. Yeah, right there, Electross. It's 2 E's, right? So to see the difference here is it gets 30 on its attack, and it gets 30 on its special attack with a little bit of boost to its Spadef. I think it's actually a very usable mon. Historically, this mon's always just been a very good balance mon. The fact that you can go physical or special with it is really good, and it gets a lot of different physical moves and special moves. Like, as far as physical moves go, it gets things like Close Combat, which you wouldn't think, Dragon Claw, which you wouldn't think, Giga Impact, Knockoff, Liquidation, Lunge. These are all really, really good moves. We're also still getting like good electric coverage as well. So it gets really solid coverage on physical. And then on special coverage, it also gets like access to like a bunch of like unique moves. It gets access to like electric coverage, Dragon Pulse, Flamethrower, Giga Drains. You know, there's so many like weird moves that it can go, and it can be both physical or special. It's definitely usable, right? It's in the usable tier. It's better here, better here, better here, better here, better here. Probably right here is where I would put it. I think Meganium still is a little bit better. But I think Electross is very good. The problem is it has that fighting weakness, right? Normally these things would have Levitate, and Levitate's not in the game, which means you can't do anything against these guys. So the electric types are a real struggle busting over here. And the fact that like they can't really do anything to any of these ground types versus like a fire type go. Like, let's compare something like a Chandelure to the Electro. Chandelure's gonna have more special attack and have dual stabs that can still hit these things. You can't even really hit these guys with your stabs because they're ground and you're electric, so you're gonna struggle bust just a little bit here. But definitely a usable mon for sure. So let's talk about Dragonite here. Dragonite, Mega Dragonite. So Mega Dragonite's kind of cool. So plug in Dragonite here, you see it gains only 10 boost to its attack, it gains 20 boost to its defense, 25 to its Spadef, and 45 to its special attack stats. So if you're gonna be using a Dragonite, right, that has like the Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, like the Bolt Beam combo, this is a good mon. It gets Draco Meteor, right? These are good coverage options with like a Flamethrower, or it might even still get Heat Wave. Yep, there it is. Like, that's the special set that you would probably want on this thing. I think it's definitely usable. I think the fact that it's not 100% reliant on Mega is actually very good. I think like a plus move boosted just Ice Beam or Thunderbolt could KO something like a Garchomp or a Gyarados. Same thing goes for like the Heat Wave into something like a Scizor, which is very popular. I think it's usable. I think every single team should honestly have a good flying pivot to block earthquakes from these guys. So I think it's definitely solid. I would probably put it right here. I think Feraligatr is like really like the perfect example of like solid. I think it's one of those mons that's really good. And I think Dragonite, the fact that it shares that fairy weakness with like a lot of other mons. So it's like Xerneas gives it a problem. And then like all the other dragons give it like a massive problem. If it wants to use like Draco, which honestly you should be using on Mega Dragonite, it's going to be too reliant. It's too long of a startup. You just get dumped by Dragon Rush. And I don't think that you realistically should be using like a physical Mega Dragonite just because it only gets 10% boost to your stats. You'd be better off with just like an Expert Belt or a Life Orb on a regular Dragonite set. It's definitely like a solid mon, but there's just too many weaknesses that it has. It's Ice Beam fodder, it's Rock fodder, it's Dragon fodder, and it's just kind of hard to use. But it does have a decent matchment in things like Excadrill, so keep that in mind. And like things like, you know, Delphox, so it's solid. Mega Venusaur. I've used a little bit of Mega Venusaur, and when talking about Mega Venusaur, we have to think that it like Mega Venusaur is very similar to things like Victreebel. They're actually like super similar, but Venusaur has like way better defensive stats. Like, it gains 20 more bulk there, it gains 40 more bulk there, a little bit of attack. You can go like Earthquake with it. I think, does it actually still get Curse? Yeah, so like you can go like, that's a set, like that's a thing that you can do with this guy. I don't recommend it. But I think that Mega Venusaur is solid. It gets access to things like Earth Power, access to Solar Beam when you're already plus moving it, and then access to Sludge Bomb. Like, that's good coverage, right? I don't think it gets Calm Mind. It does not. What other move did I use when I used this thing? I featured it about a week ago. Let's see. What other special moves do you get? I might have just put Protect on it, honestly. Let's see, I might have just put Energy Ball too for like double grass coverage. But yeah, I think it's a solid mon. I think it's going to be able to live through a lot of different stuff. The issue with Venusaur, which is why it's not like absolutely amazing, is that it can really only be like a special attacker if you want to use like the good coverage moves. And special attackers in it, even something like Xerneas, hitting it super effective for Sludge Bomb. If Xerneas has the Geo off, they're just going to be able to outvalue, and Xerneas can tech things like Psychic, so it's really hard to deal with. And then you do struggle with a lot of the big steel types. Yes, you have like an Earth Power, but it's not stabbed, and you only have a 122 base special attack. It's more like a fat, like chunky mon that can soak damage and pick things off that are already at half. It's not getting those big one shots. That being said, it's definitely usable. I would say it's probably right here. I would say it's much better, so much better than the Victreebel, because you're not going to get one-shotted by everything, and you still have like the same base attack and special attack realistically, but you have just like better coverage moves, things like Earth Power and Earthquake, things like that. So I think this is a usable mon. On the right team, it could get a lot of value. I think it also gets access to Reflect. I don't think it gets the light screen though, right? It does. It does get dual screens. Yeah. It didn't used to get one of these. I don't remember which one, but yeah, it gets dual screens too. So it's like, that set right there, that works, right? Dual screens make things good. You gotta respect dual screens. Like if you're looking at trying to check like Ampharos, this is a good anti-meta lead into Ampharos and Xerneas. So if you're struggling with like that specific core, people bullying you with Ampharos, people bullying you with Xerneas, this has good coverage and good defensive typing into both those while still setting those screens correctly. So on the right team, this could definitely be a usable mon, right? So let's talk about Megazard X. Megazard X. So Megazard X actually has some pretty decent standings recently. So it's top 4 here, top 16 at the bottom. Let's take a look at this one. I think there was another Zard X in top 8. Same player actually, just using a lot of the same Zard X. And Zard X was also featured. Is there any here? I wish I had like all of the standings here, and like I post all these standings on like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, but we're just usually like using the last 3 since those are all of like the season 2 standings. Zard X is definitely a viable option. I'm surprised by how good Zard X is, right? So let's take a look at Charizard. You can see the difference between Charizard and Charizard X is it gains a massive attack stat and boost to its special attack as well as its defense. Very, very solid stuff. The cool thing about this guy is you can go with like a Swords Dance set, sorry. So Swords Dance, and then you have access to things like Dragon Rush, which is one of the best gap closers in the game, right? You have access to Flare Blitz, which is one of the best gap closers in the game. The move pool, the Swords Dance here, and then the addition of Thunder Punch here to be able to hit those water types, flying types, things like that with a fast animation. This is good. You check dragons, you check steel types, you check ground types, because a lot of the ground types, like Garchomp gets KO'd here, Excadrill gets KO'd here, Gyarados gets KO'd here. This is just a good mega. This is a good mega for like the mid game, maybe get some screens up, come into this guy, get like 1 and 2 KOs. It's solid. Like I definitely think it's a really, really good mega, and you can use it in a lot of different situations. I would put it probably here though. I think it's actually really good because remember, it starts off as regular Charizard, so similar to Dragonite, right? It's going to be able to start the game off with, let's just plug in a Charizard right here. Start the game off as a flying pivot, right? It has flying typing, so like what you can do is you can lead something like, we've talked about this already, Ampharos, right? So you lead something like an Ampharos, you set those dual screens, and they come over to you with their Garchomp or their Excadrill, and you pivot to your flying typing, and you block the damage, and now you have dual screens, and now you can just kind of repin. You can set it, you can actually, like, I think if they don't have rock coverage, you could just set up like a Swords Dance on a Garchomp's face and just Dragon Rush it, even outside of being mega, just because like Charizard doesn't have a terrible attack stat. It's a solid mon. I think it's definitely usable. It also gets access to like, you know, fly, it gets access to like earthquake, things like that. A lot of good coverage on this thing. So I definitely think it's near the bottom of the very good category, but in terms of like megas, they gain like a completely different play style and different defensive typing. It's very similar to Altaria in that regard, where like it kind of flips on amazing defensive typing, amazing bulk, and can out-trade things 1v1. In terms of like a 1v1, this thing can win almost any 1v1 in the game. So let's talk about Charizard Y. I've actually featured a lot of Charizard Y on the channel, and it's just going to be very similar to regular Charizard, where it keeps the fire flying typing, but you gain like a massive boost to your special attack stat instead, gaining 50 more special attack stat. I've actually used a little bit more Charizard Y than Charizard X personally, and I think it's like a really good partner, because like, you know, we talked about the example where you have Ampharos, get those screens, you pivot to this guy, and now you can just one-shot like the Excadrill or the Metagross and stuff like that without having to, you know, utilize your Mega, because like base form Charizard has a much higher base special attack, being a 109, right? So I think that like it really is a little bit more usable outside of its Mega, and then you're utilizing a secondary flying stab, which isn't amazing, but like Hurricane's good, Heat Wave is good. These moves, like in like the game are just good. They create those cones that deal massive AoE damage. The problem here is you don't get like a Nasty Plot or a Calm Mind or anything, but you do get access to like Solar Beam, stuff like that. I think it's solid. I think it's a good mon. I think Chandelure is just better though in most situations. Chandelure just has like better defensive typing. Chandelure has more special attack, a different type of stab, more useful stab being Shadow Ball. So like I think that it's a solid mon, but probably it's definitely better than Absol. It's not as good as Emboar. I don't think it's good as Scolipede, but it's better than most of these. It's just right in the middle of like being a usable mon. Now, we're going from talking about a usable mon, a solid mon, to talking about a potential mon. What are we going to do with Mega Beedrill? Mega Beedrill here. Look at this thing. It goes from 90 to 150, 60 additional points in attack, and then it keeps its same like terrible defenses. Straight up glass cannon here. Cool thing about this guy is it gets access to Swords Dance, and then you get access to Drill Run for coverage. It gets access to Poison Jab, great into Zern, and then I think the bug attack people use on it is Lunge, I believe. It gets Outrage too. Actually, I've seen more people taking Outrage recently than having any bug coverage. This can one-shot Garchomp, this can one-shot Xerneas, and this one-shots like Metagross and or Excadrill, things like that. And so you're probably thinking like, whoa, this guy's obviously like the best mon in the game. And the problem with it is it gets tapped by like every move. You can hit it with like just a plus move of like anything and it will die. So it's very similar to like a Mega Lopunny, where it's always going to go like a 1-for-1. That being said, it has much better offensive coverage than like I would say Lopunny does, and a higher base attack. It's really good into what the meta is. You can Oko the Metagross, you can Oko the Garchomp, you can Oko the Zern, Oko the Shandy, right? Oko all of these things too, right? So it's really, really solid into the meta, but it's just super one-dimensional. And the fact is, you have to have the Mega Energy to actually make it work. So where would we really put it? I would put it probably right here. It's a little bit better than things like Emboar, a little bit better than things like Scolipede. And I think that, like, I remember I was playing Life Orb Xerneas, and I got my Geo off, and this Mega Beedrill was running at me, and I kid you not, I went for a Life Orb Thunderbolt KO. I think he was probably at like 90, maybe he had taken like the smallest chip, and he just died, right? And I was just like, that sucks to be you, bro. You know, like, anything neutral just one-shots this thing. Like, look at this thing's base stats. 40 base defense, like neutral earthquakes, any sort of like physical attack is just gonna one-shot this thing. 80 special, 80 spadef, off like 65 HP, glass cannon. If you're going 1-for-1 with this thing, you're doing it right. You have the tools to go 1-for-1, even 1-for-2, but like that's the best that you're gonna get with this thing. So that's just my opinion. So Mega Blastoise. Mega Blastoise is a mon that you haven't really seen like featured all that often. I think it's definitely usable, but like when comparing it to Slowbro, I think Slowbro gets better options. So Blastoise here. We take a look at Blastoise would normally have like a 185, 105, and then Mega Blastoise would have like 120, 135, 115. So it's much better. It's very bulky, but it's very similar to like Venusaur, where instead of gaining like a massive special attack stat, you gain massive bulk. And it gets decent coverage moves. You know, it has access to like Hydro Pump, it has access to like Ice Beam. The problem with this guy, just like Venusaur, is it doesn't get a stat boosting move. There's no Calm Mind here, right? So you have these coverage moves, and then like what? You have like Dragon Pulse, Aura Sphere, you know, that's about it. It just doesn't really get like Flash Cannon. That's not doing a lot. So I think it's usable, but it's one of those mons where it's just like, oh, like after your Hydro Pump's on cooldown, that's it, and you don't even like KO everything with Hydro Pump. I actually think if we were to compare this to like a non-Mega Mon, you'd be comparing it to something like a Clawitzer, right? Not just because they both get Mega Launcher, but because their stat lines are just pretty similar. Like, this thing only uses Hydro Pump and Ice Beam, and this thing uses Hydro Pump and Ice Beam. But then it also has like Dark Pulse. They have like the same moves because they both are built around Mega Launcher, but this thing is just like Life Orb better, right? You don't have to be Mega to actually work like you would with the Clawitzer. So that being said, it's definitely usable. Probably more usable than Venusaur. Probably more usable than Banette, but not more usable than Clefable. Definitely more usable than some of these other ones as well, back there too, just because like solo water typing is just a good defensive typing. It's usable. It's definitely like an okay mon, but I think there are better options. So Malamar is a pretty, I would say, underwhelming mon. If we take a look at its base stats, I would say Malamar might actually have like some of the worst looking base stats for any Mega. It's weird that like this adds up to 582. That's like what I'm thinking. Like, it has lower base stats than Mega Altaria, and its highest stat is its Spadef, and it can't really deal damage. So while it gets access to things, I think, like Nasty Plot and Calm Mind, And even stuff like Swords Dance, I believe. Does it get Swords Dance? No. It must get, like, Cursed, though, right? No, it doesn't get Cursed. Does it get Bulk Up? Holy moly. It does get Bulk Up. Like, I was like, it gets one of these. It gets access to all the plus boosting moves, but even, like, any stat boosted variant of these, whether it be physical or special, which it has decent coverage. It has access to, like, you know, close combats. It gets Flamethrower for special, gets Liquidation, Poison Jab. It has all the right moves, right? It just has no stats at all. So I don't really see it having like any real value. This will get one-shotted by like a Mega Garchomp Earthquake or like a Swords Dance Excadrill Earthquake. So I just don't think that it is very solid. And then Dark Psychic typing is just Zern food. So I think it's worse than Sharpedo and Victreebel, honestly. Just because like at least like Sharpedo has like decent enough, like water is just good coverage, right? But like Malamar, like the moves that Sharpedo has, like Waterfall, Liquidation, those gap closers and stuff like that, are better than what Malamar brings to the table. It doesn't get like the Thunderbolts, I don't believe. It does get Thunderbolt. Actually, it does get Thunderbolt. Why don't people use that with Thunderbolt? I've never seen anyone use a Thunderbolt set. Like its best set is probably honestly gonna be something like Thunderbolt, Calm Mind, Flamethrower, and like Psychic. And this is like a really, really, really terrible Clefable, really bad Audino, really like you're enabling its special attack stat, which is like even lower than its attack stat too. And it's like this probably doesn't even KO Gyarados even with a Calm Mind boost. So it's pretty underwhelming. Cool though, but underwhelming. All right, we're gonna take a look at Dragalge next. I actually made a Dragalge team pretty realistically, like a little bit ago. I think it's okay. So Dragalge right here, we take a look at the differences here. A little bit boost to its defense, massive boost to its special attack, and great boost to its Spadef. So it's going to be a usable mon in this format because it gets access to Sludge Bomb for dealing with Xerneas's. It gets access to Draco if we want to drop the big Dracos on him. It also gets access to like Flamethrower, not Flamethrower, sorry, Thunderbolt. It gets access to Thunderbolt. So like this is decent enough coverage. I think it gets like one other cool movie. It gets like Focus Blast. Oh, it gets Hydro Pump. Yeah. So like I think that like this is really solid coverage on honestly, like higher base special attack stat than this thing would normally have. Like a set like this is just gonna be solid. That being said, I'm surprised it hasn't actually broken through and done well. It has neutral kind of matchups against Metagrosses because they honestly don't carry that much steel coverage. I think it also does get Ice Beam for things like Dragonite, Garchomp. It has Hydro Pump for the Shandies. It can soft check the Zerns. I think it's definitely like a usable mon. Like look at the metas. Like we're starting to see more fighting types. Unfortunately, you can see it does have that weakness to ground. That's probably what is keeping it a little bit lower. But I think it's solid. I think it's very reliant on its Mega. I would say it's probably right around here. This is where I would put it. I think Absol just has better defensive typing, being just solo mono dark. Having an Earthquake weakness on a very slow movement speed is going to really make this guy a lot harder to use. But the coverage on this thing is premium. Thunderbolts, Dragon, water coverage, like really solid stuff. I think it's good. I want to make sure that if it gets Ice Beam, I don't want to give you guys any misinformation. It gets Icy Wind. Oh, that's funny. That's troll right there. So yeah, it doesn't get the Ice Beam. So yeah, that's another reason why it's not as high. The fact that it's Thunderbolt is really a saving grace for this thing. Thunderbolt's really good. Thunderbolt's great for like finishing something off, homing, super effective against so many different things. It's just great. So Mega Glalie. Huh, that is a weird one. You don't see anyone ever use this thing. This is one of the weirdest Megas. So it gains 40 attack and 40 special attack. It goes from 80s across the board to like 120s in just offenses. So right off the bat, you could Mega it or you could just Life Orb it. But then like its coverage is really weird. It still gets Freeze Dry, which is amazing. It's Ice Beam. It's going to be built better as like, I would say a special attacker than a physical attacker. But then like that's all the coverage you get if you want to go special to enable like an Ice Beam. Right? It gets access to like, I guess you can go like Shadow Ball, but it's like a really, really, really bad like Glaceon. And then if you want to go physical, the only thing this guy really gets is Explosion, right? And like there are so many other mons that do that better. Going into a Mega just to explode is very suboptimal. You share a weakness with Xerneas. You have a weakness to Chandelure. This guy, just from the fact that like its whole set is built around an ability that's not in the game, on a previous evolution form, Moody, which is not in the game, means that just this stat set is garbage, right? So it's definitely gonna be the last one here. At least Malamar gets like decent moves. Freeze Dry is not enough to save this thing from being the worst Mega in the game. Frostlass is gonna be another ice type. Looks like we have a lot of ice types coming up here. Here we go, Frostlass. Now, Frostlass is clunky. It moves really slowly, more clunky than any other mon in the game, I think, especially when it Mega. And when it Mega, it gets so big, especially using like an Alpha when its Hurt Box is so hard. This thing gets hit by everything, but it gains 60 to its Spadef and 30 to its special, 60 to its special attack, 30 to its Spadef. I think it's really cool, though. I was playing it with Calm Mind. Not Calm Mind, I'm so sorry. I was at Nasty Plot, right? Yeah, Nasty Plot. And then it gets access to like Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball, and Ice Beam. I think this is good coverage. I think this is very good coverage. Now, one cool thing about this is the fact that you're still stabbing this Ice Beam means you can use this outside of Mega and still get KOs on Dragons, which is nice. Plus move boosted Thunderbolt will KO because it has like a decent special attack and just Frostlass. The problem is like you get KO'd by like everything and you share a weakness with Xerneas. So like every Steel move hits you, every Fire move hits you. Earthquake will actually one-shot you since you're a 70-70. So it's cool. It's definitely usable because just from the fact that like you're a high special attacking Thunderbolt user, it's probably about right here in the usable category, I would say. Probably right about there in the usable category. It's better than all these other mons because it has amazing coverage, but it is so clunky and slow moving and such a big target when you're in Mega that like anything can just one-shot it. So it's just kind of hard to use. Let's take a look at Abomasnow here. And take a look at the differences between them. It's actually one of the few Megas, very similar to Glalie, right? That gets just, it's a big boost to like some of the defenses, but like its offenses get the same boost. So I think the fact that you can build this guy physical or special is actually really, really cool. That being said, both of them are good. I think you're probably still better being a special attacker, but like you could honestly build a set that's like this and like have value with like Ice Beam, Wood Hammer, like Earth Power or Earthquake, you know, like you could do a mix set and get some value out of this thing and people wouldn't really see it coming. Have like Ice Shard on there. I don't know what you want to run, right? But it gets all the different like coverage moves for both physical or special. The fact that it gets Earth Power and Earthquake, I think it gets, does it get Reflect too? No, it just gets Light Screen. Just gets Light Screen. It doesn't get a lot of stat boosting moves. It doesn't get the Swords Dances. I don't know if it gets Curse. Does get Curse. So, I mean, that's kind of cool. You can go Curse physical on this thing. That's not bad. But like having a Steel weakness and a Fire weakness, man, it's rough. It's decent into Dragons. It's good into like some Earthquake users, but I think that this thing is going to struggle. I'm going to put it in the below average category, but I feel like it's probably just a little bit more viable than something like an Alakazam. It is just really one-dimensional, even though you can go physical or special. Like that's its one little thing that it can do. All right, so we're going to talk about Mega Scizor now. Now, Mega Scizor is a mon that is just better off being regular Scizor. I think if we were to take a look at some of our usage stats here, like Scizor pops up, there's a Scizor right there, and then one of these tournaments we had just like Scizor everywhere. Yep, Scizor just came out of nowhere and just kind of broke the game. It gets good Brick Break, it can set up with Swords Dance. I prefer it with Lunge. I made a bunch of videos featuring Scizor. I think Scizor is a very good mon. Now, Mega Scizor is not as good because it requires that Mega. If we take a look at Scizor here, the differences between them aren't really that big, right? It's only 20 boost in attack, 40 in defense, 20 in speed up. That's nice, right? But like AV Scizor gives like an immediate boost right away. Life Orb Scizor gives an immediate attack boost right away. I was playing it with Rocky Helmet for a little bit too, and that was also very good. Now, one of the cool things about Scizor here is it gets access to Swords Dance and Curse. I like Curse a little bit better because it gives you that defense boost, and then you get access to like Bullet Punch if you want it, but Iron Head is good. Iron Head's solid. You can have Lunge as a gap closer. And so I really like this coverage right here. And then it also gets access to like Knockoff if you want it. But I also really like Night Slash. I think Night Slash is solid. Both these are good. But I think that this coverage here lets you just like 1v1 Metagross with like these three. If you Curse, you can one shot with like Lunge, or two shots, sorry, with Lunge and Knockoff into any Metagross set. So it's definitely usable into like a meta dominated by like ground types and Metagross and Xerneases. So I think that it's definitely like a solid mon. We can put it in the solid category, but probably right around here, I would say. It's definitely solid. You can use it, but I think regular Scizor is better. And similar to like Garchomp, right? The fact that like regular Scizor is just so good and gets access to like Brick Break, can even technically set screens and stuff like that itself, means that like you're not reliant on Mega 100% to be usable. You just really got to watch out for that fire coverage. And like every single team is teching like multiple like fire mons and fire coverages to be able to deal with all the Metagrosses. Like, you know, so you just got to watch out. You also get like double tapped by like Amphi with like Thunderbolts and stuff like that too. So it's just kind of hard to use. Pinsir is actually one of the few mons that I think is slept on, similar to like Mega Slowbro. I think Mega Pinsir is actually really, really good. but people aren't utilizing it correctly. So Pinsir right here, it gains 30 to its attack, 20 to its defense, and 20 to its Spadef. I think it's actually really cool, right? And it gains flying typing, which that's one thing I really like about it. So it's one of the few mons in the game that can swap in and soak damage from Earthquake, but also, even if you're already Mega Evolved, it'll mitigate all the damage. You gain a weakness to like Thunderbolt and Ice Beam, similar to like a Clefable, but like it gets good moves. I think it does get Lunge, which is a good gap closer. It gets Earthquake, right? I think it does get Swords Dance and things like that. This is an underrated Mega for sure. It has enough attack to actually finish things off after the +1 using plus moves from Swords Dance, and so people should actually try using this thing just a little bit more. You'd be surprised by how well this team works. If you're looking for like a team that needs like a ground pivot, so if you're trying to use stuff like a Metagross or, you know, any other team that like an Ampharos that needs like a ground pivot, Mega Pinsir could be a very solid alternative. I think I'm going to put it in the usable category. I'm going to put it above Frostlass behind Clefable. Just because it is 100% reliant on that Mega, but it does have good coverage, and then maybe in a meta not dominated by Xerneas and Yveltal, which again block both of its like stab moves and stuff like that, it might be a little bit better. So maybe Ranked Battle Season 3, we'll see a little bit more Mega Pinsir, but it's definitely a usable mon, and it's really chonky. I think that people will be surprised by how well this thing eats moves. Like, I know when I play it, people just throw a Thunderbolt in there thinking it's gone, or an Ice Beam in the Mega, and like, you're not dead, and then you just one-shot them with something. It's really cool mon. Heracross is another mon that I actually really still like, but I can't make a lot of videos with it just because, you know, so many people got Boys, the Heracross that was given out in the game, and no one really wants to click on a video with Mega Heracross because they already know how Heracross works. So it's one of those mons that I still really like, though. Heracross is very, very good. It gains 60 to its attack and 40 to its defense, and 10 to its Spadef. It's very similar to Mega Slowbro, where it foddered all of its speed, or some points in its speed, just a little bit, to gain like massive boosts to its other like offensive stats, right? It's just a really, really good stat stick. So Mega Heracross gets access to like Mega Horn, gets access to Lunge. It gets access to like, I think it's one of the better Rock Blast users. I think it's one of the few mons can make that work. But it gets access to like Rock Slide. It gets access to like Earthquake. You see, these are all really good moves. It doesn't have any ice coverage, like electric coverage, or anything weird like that. But at the same time, like, it's just like a solid mon. Like this is just unique enough coverage. If you're looking for very similar like to Pinsir, like a bug type to mitigate ground moves, this is a good pivot. It's a solid Mega with a lot of really good gap closers. I think more people should use Mega Heracross, and I'm going to put it in the solid category, but probably right here. I think it's better than Mega Gengar. I think the fact that, again, Xerneas and Yveltal are so popular, it gives this guy like a little bit of a hard time. But it's really good into like these guys. It's really good into like some of the other things here. And again, it has one-shot potential on almost all the mons down here, right? So it's a little bit of like a gatekeeper into the upper ranks, in my opinion. But let me know if you want to see more Heracross content. I'll try and bring it out, but I really do like the mon. The fact that it just gets tapped by Xer makes it a little bit hard to use. Going into Mega Hawlucha, we're going to talk about Mega Hawlucha here. And it's a usable mon. So taking a look at Hawlucha, it gains like 40-ish, a little bit more than 40 on its attack stat, gains 20 in its defense, 30 in its Spadef. It's solid, right? I think it's really, really cool. It gets access to like Flying Press, which is a cool move. It's basically like a fly. It lets you avoid damage. So you can go Flying Press and fly on this thing, and that's like really cool for being able to avoid damage. Sometimes people even still take like a Detect on it, but I think it gets access to like Earthquake as well. No, it doesn't get access. It's not Earthquake. It's one of the punches, I think. You don't really see this thing used all that much. So he gets Thunder Punch here for better like Gyarados coverage. And then like the issue with this guy, like a lot of people go with like a Bulk Up or something. Some people also go like Brave Bird for coverage, but you see how it's like really, really, I'm gonna say two-dimensional, which it can go into like either flying or fighting coverage, and that's kind of like it. It doesn't have ice coverage. It gets Fire Punch, but that's not really that great. Lunge is a good gap closer. It gets some good moves. 137 is a little bit low though on the attack stat. So it's definitely a usable mon, but it's just gap closers, and then like the fact that it gets folded by both Xerneas and Yveltal, both of their stabs, gives it kind of just hard to use. I would say it's probably right around here. It's in the middle of usable, right? It's not as usable as like these mons with really good coverage or really good defensive typing, but it's much better than some of the other one-trick Andes that are still technically in the usable category, just because it's one trick. Being like really like good gap closers on fighting and flying can be the right mon on some teams. Plus it has flying typing itself, so it can be a great earthquake defensive pivot. So it's definitely usable, but not like amazing. I think it's probably gonna be a lot better once we get like abilities back with like turn-based Pokemon. I could see this guy being really, really solid. So let's take a look at Pidgeot next. So Pidgeot next. Pidgeot. Mega Pidgeot. So the differences here is it gets 5 to its defense, which is funny, and then it gets like 65 boost to its special attack and 10 boost to its Spadef. So I actually won the very first Legends ZA tournament. I hosted like a 20-ish player tournament like the third day the game was out, and I won it with this set. I used Reflect, and then I used like Heat Wave, right? I used Hurricane, right? And like this is still good. Like if we take a look at like the meta here, that's still good in like today's meta with all these steel types and all these scissors and all the flying coverage with like a Reflect user. It's so good. I was very ahead of the curve using this mega. The problem is it like requires mega. You have like an ice and electric weakness. It's cool and it's fun, and it's a great mega to like bring out in like the middle of the game and get like 1 or 2 KOs, but it's just not great. It's definitely in the usable category, but probably not that high. I think I'm going to put it down here. I think that even Altaria does a lot of what this thing does, but just a little bit better with better defensive typing, right? So I think that it's a cool mon, but, you know, its best days are probably behind it. So let's take a look at Scrafty. Scrafty's a very usable mon, but it struggles from the fact that it has a 4 times weakness to Xerneas, and Yveltal gives it a hard time too. It gains 40 on its attack, 20 to its defense, 20 to its Spadef. It gains a lot of bulk, right? But the problem is, like, you kind of need to use close combat on this thing. You could go Brick Break, but you just won't get any KOs. And if you're getting a Spadef and defense drop from using close combat, you're just going to really struggle to, like, trade effectively with people if you don't one-shot them. You could technically go Brick Break, like I said, and it's solid, but like you're gonna realize you're not gonna get any KOs. It gets access to like Ice Punch, it gets access to like Thunder Punch, it gets access to Knock Off. It's solid. When I build this thing, I built it with like bulk up here, and the set was fine. It's very similar to like Lopunny, but like weaker and like just as like really, really weak to Fairy. That being said, like I found myself, even without the bulk up, getting like one-shotted by like +1 earthquakes from people. And like they would live the Ice Punch sometimes, but I didn't have the bulk up, and outside of Mega, Scrafty's pretty underwhelming. That being said, it is still definitely in the usable category. I would say it's probably right around, I would put it right here in the usable category, because I think it's better than these two. It gets better coverage being those elemental punches and more inherent bulk than things like Lucario. But I think like Lopunny being just a solid normal type means it's not going to get one-shotted by like random coverage moves. And I think that like Lopunny just has a little bit better move pool, being that stab giga impact versus like Scrafty. So I think it's usable, but it just is probably going to be one of those mons that's a lot better when we get abilities back. Man, I've been doing this for a while. My throat is starting to get tired. I'm going to take a sec to take a sip of coffee and remind everyone that you guys can still drop that sub. If you want to help me out here, if you have ideas for any sort of other tier lists you want to see me do, let me know. All right, and we're going to finish up this list here. So Shandy, we've been talking a lot about Chandelure and how it's one of like the best mons in the game, right? 2 Shandys in Top Cut here. Shandy in Top Cut here. And then Shandy and Top Cut here, right? Now, those were all regular Chandelures, Life Orb, Shuckaberries, AV, stuff like that. So those, like Chandelure is just a cracked Pokemon. Mega Chandelure is one of those mons where it's technically better just to be non-Mega, similar to how like Garchomp is sometimes better just with like a different item than its Mega Stone, but regular like Mega Chandelure is still very, very, very viable. And let's explain what it really brings to the table. So Chandelure here, it gains 30 base special attack on already one of the highest special attacks in the game, 20 to its defense, 20 to its Spadef. This is an amazing stat line. So what you would want to do with Mega Chandelure is set up like Calm Mind, just like regular Chandelure. You go for Heat Waves, you go for Shadow Balls, And then I feel like for the last move, some people are teching like a bunch of different things. Some people tech double fire moves in some of these situations. Some people even just go protect, right? I've seen this set work as well. And so you have protector to block the earthquake. And then like if their only move that can hit you for super effective is that earthquake, they kind of just lose. Or you can just use your mega as a get out of jail free card to kind of, you know, block that one earthquake on your mega and then like trade with things really well. I think it's a really, really solid mon. If we're talking about where to put this, it's definitely in the very good category. I would say probably right here. Maybe let's put it actually right here. Let's put it above Slowbro just because like it does have better like overall results than Slowbro does. And it's just really good defensive typing. It's good into Metagross. It's good defensively into Xerneas. It forces people to go into ground mons to pin you, which can enable your ground pivots. We've talked so much today about how strong some of these mons are just because they are ground pivots, right? So this is the mon that baits them into doing that, right? This is the mon that says, hey, you need to hit me with an earthquake. So I pivot to something like a Gyarados and then I just repin your ground user very easily. I think it's a very, very solid mon. A lot of you could benefit from probably utilizing a Chandelure on your team in some way or another. So let's talk about Mega Aerodactyl next. Mega Aerodactyl is the most perfect example of Life Orb is just better than the Mega, right? You gain 30 attack, 20 defense, 20 spadef, but like this guy has like really weird coverage, right? It doesn't really get a lot of the stat boosting moves. I think it says it gets Curse here, but I don't actually know if it gets Curse in game. It doesn't get Swords Dance, right? So, you know, it doesn't get a lot of stuff. It gets access to like Stone Edge, right? It gets access to Fly, right? Those are good moves in this game. And then like it gets Ice Fang, which normally you'd see would be boosted by like a Tough Claws or something because that would make contact, but there's no abilities in this game. And then like Earthquake. And so like if this is your move set, don't go Mega Aerodactyl, just go Life Orb regular Aerodactyl. You're gonna get more damage because regular Aerodactyl still has a respectable enough attack stat. So where would I put it? I think it actually falls into the below average category just barely because it has a weakness to Bolt Beam and its stabs are just not ones that are amazing into the current meta. Like against like a Gyarados, for example. You just can't really, or not Gyarados, a Metagross, I'm so sorry. You just don't really do that much to those things. I'm gonna put it at the bottom of the below average category. I think it's cool. It is a flying pivot for a lot of teams, but it has that same weakness to Steel, weakness to Bolt Beam. It's just really, really clunky and hard to use, and it just doesn't really get any KOs. It's going to lose every trade, like every Heavy Slam from every Metagross, and Metagross being probably the most popular, you know, Pokemon in the game. I would say non-Mega variant gives it just way too hard of a time. It's cool, but not great. So let's talk about Mega Steelix. So Mega Steelix is actually very cool. Mega Steelix. So Mega Steelix, you can see, gets a 40 boost to its Spadef, 30 boost to its defense, and 30 boost to its Spadef. Or you guys know what I said. I said Spadef twice, but attack, defense, and Spadef all get massive boosts here. And then it gets really cool. It gets access to like Heavy Slam. It gets access to like Earthquake. It gets access to so many different things here. This guy does get Curse, unlike Mega Aggron, right? So it's solid coverage here. And then you get access to like Drill Run if you want it. You can go with any of like the different fangs, like Ice Fangs. I think it does even get like Head Smash and stuff like that. It gets so much cool stuff. I think it's definitely a usable mon. More people should be respectful of Mega Steelix, I believe. But that being said, where would we put it? It's definitely in the usable category. And I think the fact that like its typing like is more standard in what the current meta is going to be why it's going to be higher than some other things. I would probably say it's probably right around here. I would say its biggest struggle is the fact that it still has that weakness to ground, the weakness to fire. It's going to struggle fighting anything that's like flying, like a Mega Skarmory just says like you're absolutely done. Even against like a Mega Metagross or even just like any Metagrosses, you're going to have a hard time. But that being said, I think it's definitely like a usable mon. You could try and feature it. I think one or two of them actually got top cut in our last tournament. So it is a usable mon on the right team. It's good at forcing Xerneas out, which is all you really need sometimes. Force the Xerneas out and you're fine. Let's talk about Mega Aggron here. Now, I think I made a video like a couple weeks ago talking about Mega Aggron, and I said it got cursed, but it doesn't, right? It gets 140 attack, 230 defense. I think this is just a better mon than Steelix though, because it goes to a mono steel type instead of like a steel, I believe, ground type. And so you don't have like that weakness to water and stuff like that Steelix has. So that being said, it gets access to Heavy Slam too. It gets access to Head Smash if you want to use it outside of your Mega form. It gets access to Earthquake. it's just a solid mon. I think it's a lot of really, really good coverage. Gets access like Fire Punch, bunch of like weird things. It gets the Ice Punch, gets Outrage. I think this is just a much better mon with a much higher attack stat than most people give it credit for. 140 is really good. You're not going to be able to break this thing with physical attacks. And the fact that it gets like good moves, which can be like plus moved into like multiple 4x super effective moves against other things, is very good. So I would put it in the solid category. I would actually put it right above Mega Gengar. I think that Mega Gengar is like kind of the barrier for like, this is a good mon that you can use, but like Aggron is going to excel in a lot of like different situations and be like unbreakable. I think there are a few Mega Aggrons that have, you know, squirmed their way into our top cuts. I think a lot of them did near the end of Season 1. There was a bunch of them that were like in the middle of the pack in Season 1. In Ranked Battle Season 2, though, it's fine. It's usable into Yveltal, it's great in Xerneas, and even those like Earthquake users like Garchomp and stuff like that would give you problems, like you can outvalue them with Aggron in some situations, so I think it's really a cool mon. So let's talk about Mega Tyranitar. Mega Tyranitar is another mon that I think is pretty slept on, for a few reasons. I think that you can build the right team to enable a Mega T-Tar. It gains 30 boost to its attack, it gains 40 boost to its defense, its special attack stays the same, and its SPDF gets a 20 boost. Now, I think that this guy can be built physical or special. A lot of people disagree, but it gets similar to Absol. All the same, you know, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, Flamethrower coverage. If you want to build this guy special, you definitely can. It gets even like cool moves like Earth Power. But that being said, it is going to be better built physical. And I really like this guy because it's a massive Stone Edge. I think that this guy's not really going to get one-shotted by a lot of different stuff. The Zern's going to need the Geo to one-shot this, and it can live through any sort of like Garchomp, Earthquake, anything like that, and just like Ice Punch one-shot back. You have the big knockoff here if you need it too for that stab. Your stabs are going to be premium, and this guy's so good into like Yveltal. Let's actually start taking a look at stuff this guy's good into. Let's finish up his moveset with like an Earthquake here. Right? This is a solid set. So you bring this guy out mid-game, and you one-shot here, 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 here, well, not the Zern, but like you do like 60+% with like a Stone Edge into a Zern. It's kind of ridiculous, right? Take a look at this tournament. One shot, one shot, one shot, one shot. Scarm gives you problems, right? One shot. You see the Shandy meta, Shandy Mega Metagross, things like that. Like T-Tar just kind of folds those over, and it locks your team out of having a weakness to Yveltal. You block both of their stabs. Yes, they can tech Focus Blast, but you're actually still going to live since you get a decent boost to your SPDF. So I think it's a really, really underrated mon. I would put it all the way up. It's finally going to dethrone Feraligatr. It's right there. It's one of those mons that like will not die, and you can actually compare it to the Mega Aggron. It's super bulky. It has a massive attack stat, and it's going to trade so well. You just have to really be wary of the people that are teching Focus Blast on like Zerns and like other mons that are still kind of teching that. But that being said, if you're not eating the Focus Blast or a Brick Break, this thing's going to trade incredibly well into what the meta is right now. And Mega Greninja, holy moly, this thing has dropped off since Season 1. I have not seen this guy on ladder at all. I'm not seeing anyone use this thing since Xerneas and Yveltal became legal at all. But I think it's still a cool mon. Water types are just good. Water coverage is good. So Greninja, if we take a look at it, the differences between Greninja Mega are going to be 95 going to 125 and 103 going to 133. So it's a little bit weak, but it does get access to like all the different setup moves. So you have the Nasty Plot, you have the Ice Beam, you have Dark Pulse, you have Hydro Pump and stuff like that. I think the problem with this thing is it's kind of just similar to like Mega Beedrill, where it's a bit of a glass cannon. You are going to get one-shotted from most things, but it's a solid mon. I think that like good Nasty Plot Ice Beam with like good mobility, which this thing has, is going to make it definitely more than usable. I would say this is probably a really good example of something that's almost at the top of the usable tier, right? It's much better than something like a Frostlass, even though it doesn't have as good of coverage. The fact that you do get the Dark Pulse into the Metagross, if you're already Nasty Plotted up, you can be fine. And it's one of those mons that is technically a little bit better outside of Mega, in my opinion, just because like regular Greninja is not terrible. It has all the good coverage moves, and Hydro Pump is very, very solid. So having like a ranged special attacker, it could be good. But that being said, the problem with why it's so low is like Zern gets the Geomancy, you never hit the thing, and when you do, it has a SPDF boost already, and they can just one-shot you with Thunderbolts, Ice Beams, not Ice Beams, Moonblast, everything like that, so it's just rough. But still a usable mon for sure. And we're going into Fallings. Now, I made a video with Mega Fallings recently, and it gets a really cool move. Let's plug it in, and we see what attack goes from 100 to 135, defense goes from 100 to 135, and SPDF gets a 5 boost, so good little 5er over there. But Mega Fallings gets no retreat, which I really, really like this move. It gives all of your stats a +1 boost, but you can't swap for like a really long time. When the boosts go away, then you can swap. Now, I wish this didn't have like a 40-second cooldown, because like, it feels like it sometimes. Because like you go for the no retreat and then you get KO'd and then you want to go send your Fallings back out, but you can't no retreat again. It's kind of rough to use, but it gets access to Mega Horn, it gets close combat and Brick Break. And then it gets access to like a couple other like weird things. Iron Head, Rock Slides, Stone Edge, stuff like that. Zen Headbutt. It's a fun mon. I really think it's a fun mon. I've had so much fun every single time I've tried to use this thing. I have a good time with it. That being said, there's so many other fighting types that are good. Lopunny, Scrafty, Lucario. You're starting to see a pattern where like the fighting types really do struggle in this game. And I would say Fallings is very similar. It's probably right about here. It's in the below average category just because it is required to go Mega to be usable. And then when you go Mega, you don't have the ice coverage or the ice or electric coverage needed to like pin common threats. You get massively walled by ghost types like Chandelure. Metagross is going to be able to check you a million ways. Xerneas, Yveltal both have super effective moves into you. And unlike these other fighting megas that have like all those coverage options, Fallings just doesn't. So it's just going to be a little bit underwhelming. So we're going to take a look at Mega Skarmory. We've been talking about Mega Skarmory a lot, and Mega Skarmory is one of those mons that is all over the ladder, but doesn't really see that much play in our tournaments. I think it might just be a regional thing, or like, you know, people in our tournaments don't really bust it out all that often. There's usually at least one Mega Skarmory every top 8 though. And like, I would say every single person that brings Skarmory to like our 30 and 40 plus player tournaments does get top cut with it. So that's something that you can, you know, take to the bank. So it goes from 80 to 140. It's a 60 boost, gets 30 boost on its defense, 30 on its speed up. This guy's amazing, right? You can go Curse or Swords Dance, it's up to you. And then you can go Brave Bird or Fly. You can go Drill, Run, and to get that KO right there. And then the last move that people use is, what is the last move? I've been talking for almost 2 hours. I'm getting a little bit tired here. It's something else. It's Iron Head, duh. It's Iron Head, right? So I think it's really solid. Very, very easy to play mom. This is basically just like an Excadrill that doesn't have a ground weakness. It's very, very solid. And it gets a lot of good gap closers. These are all gap closers other than the Iron Head. So you can check Zerns, you can check Shandy's, Excadrills, you can check everything else with a good gap closer. After a +1 and a plus move on this thing, you're going to get a lot of damage. So I think this is a very, very, very good mon. And I would put it in the S tier. Probably, I'd put it behind Garchomp. I think Garchomp is still a little bit better, but it's absolutely amazing. Like you can see on this team, it's a perfect pivot for Xerneas. It blocks poison, it blocks steel, it blocks the ground coverage from the Shandy. Like this is a very well-made team. Take a look at this team. I know there's a Skarm down there. The Skarm made evolutions working, right? It covers for both though. I think it's really, really solid. You know, this guy, the Vaporeon's weak against grass, you know, pivot to the Skarm. Flareon's weak against ground, pivot to the Skarm, easy peasy. Taking a look at this team, 2 Skarms in the top cut, right? I think it's just really, really solid. And, you know, it's one of those mons that if it's given the opportunity to carry, it definitely will, because it has perfect coverage. This is what Mega Beedrill really should have been, like the drill run, like aggressive mon, but then it has like, look at these bulk, like 110, 100 on this thing. It just makes it so much bulkier than a Mega Beedrill is, so it can actually trade and soak damage correctly. All right, let's take a look at Mega Ampharos. Now, we were talking a lot about Ampharos and how Ampharos is one of like the better weeds in the game, right? So we plug in Mega Amphi. I did that last time. So it gains 20 attack, which is useless, 20 defense, which is great. It gains 50 on the special attack stat and 20 to Spadef. Now, I actually really like Mega Ampharos, and I think that a lot of these Ampharos that you see on ladder should still be Mega, but a lot of people tend to go with just a Shucka Berry or a Ground Reduction Berry on their Ampharos instead of a Mega variant, which isn't wrong. You know, you can even go charge on it. But Mega Ampharos is going to be really cool. It gains Dragon as a defensive typing, similar to how Mega Charizard does, and you can go things like Thunderbolt. You gain access to Dragon Pulse, which has very low range, but you will get the KOs against other dragons if you're close. And then from there, it gets D-Gleam, it gets Flash Cannon, it's okay, it gets Focus Blast. Like, I think it's definitely a relic of Season 1 using Mega Ampharos, and regular Ampharos is fine. It still gets access to, like, Reflect and Dual Screen, right? Reflex and Light Screens. So it's definitely usable, but at the same time, it doesn't really fit in with like where the meta is right here, and the fact that it has that massive ground weakness just makes it really hard to use. It's definitely usable though. I would probably put it right about here. I think that's probably a good spot for it because it just gets access to the dual screens. You can go with a charge set if you want. Dragon as a defensive typing to block certain coverage is good, and it packs a wall up when it actually makes contact, especially if you're using the Charged Thunderbolt sets. You're going to do a lot more damage than a regular Ampharos would, so it's a usable mon, but I think just like regular Shuckleberry Ampharos is probably a little bit better. So let's talk about Mega Salamence. Mega Salamence is one of the most underwhelming Megas here. Let's plug in Sally here. So if we plug it in, it goes from like 135 and 110 to when you Mega it, it goes 145, 120. So it doesn't really get a big boost with offensive. It was one of those mons that really only was built around enabling the Aerialate ability in previous games, getting that boost to all of its normal moves, turning them into flying and giving them a stat boost. So this stat line is just really underwhelming because you're not stabbing moves that can actually KO things. Like you can put Earthquake on this thing, but unlike Garchomp, it's not stabbed. And you could put Fire Blast on it and go special, but it's not stabbing like a Chandelure would. So while it gets all the same coverage as a lot of these other various mons that are up here, it doesn't really stab them. It's stuck on that flying typing. It's stuck with a 4 times ice weakness. It's weak against Xerneas. It's pretty underwhelming, but at the same time, that stat line can't be below average. It's definitely gonna be in the usable category, but I think it might be more so near the bottom. I would probably put it right. See, it's better than Pidgeot. It's better than Altaria. It's better than Venusaur. It'd probably be right here, I think. Probably better than Banette. Not nearly as good as Hawlucha, right? Its biggest redeeming factor is the fact that it is a flying type. It can pivot in to block Earthquakes and then repin with Earthquakes, so you can go physical or special. That is one of the cool things about it, but its stat line's a little bit, I'm going to call it muddy. Like, it's wasting a lot of points into either the attack or special attack, depending on how you actually want to make this thing work. And then it doesn't get any real stat boosting moves. Like, it doesn't get Swords Dance, right? It doesn't get Curse. It doesn't get Bulk Up or anything like that. It doesn't get Nasty Plot or Calm Mind. So it's just not as good as things like Garchomp and Excadrill and all the other mons that are like that. So it's up the creek without a paddle in this game. Doesn't really have the utility to work at a high level. And you're probably just better off if you like Dragon Flyers. You're probably just better off using like a regular Dragonite or even like a Mega Dragonite, in my opinion. So let's go into Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan actually just won, it's got second place, sorry, in our last tournament. And I think it's cool. You can build it with Mega or non-Mega. And while Kangaskhan's obviously better in like turn-based Pokemon games, it's still definitely usable here. Good stat line. It goes from 95 attack to 125 attack. So you can go Life Orb, Regular Kang, or Mega Kang. And the cool thing about it is it gets all the good coverage moves. It gets Ice Punch. It gets Earthquake. It gets Giga Impact, right? It's very similar to things like Lopunny does. And it just does a lot of damage. It also gets things like Curse, Bulk Up, stuff like that if you wanted to go for those stat boosting moves. And it has enough attack to make it work with enough bulk. It's not going to be just a glass cannon using these things. So I definitely think it's a usable mon. And the fact that it's just a solo normal type means it doesn't have a weakness to Xerneas. Your opponent has to be using fighting moves, which we've seen isn't really that popular using fighting moves. The last tournament where a lot more people started taking Lucario, funny enough, that was one that Kangaskhan did well in. Like, that was the last tournament we actually saw a lot of people use fighting moves. So I think that Kangaskhan's definitely usable. It has the elemental punches, it has a decent amount of bulk. I'm gonna put it in the usable category, and I'm gonna put it probably right here in between Blastoise and Steelix is where I would honestly put it. Having just normal typing very similar to Blastoise is actually very good. Being only a few things can actually hit it for super effective. You're going to be able to do good damage to stuff, and you have the big one shots with like the massive Giga Impacts. So I think it's going to be a solid mon, and yeah, just give it a try in your games. You'd be surprised by how well this thing does. And we're getting near the end here. We have Mega Drampa, and I think Mega Drampa is another very, very cool mon here. So Drampa goes from 135 special attack to 160. Very, very strong on this thing. It gets a decent boost to its defense and speed def. And the cool thing about Drampa is very similar to Slowbro, right? It doesn't have like any speed. It's just a ton of like really, really good base stats here. It gets access to Stab Hyper Beam. It gets Hydro Pump if you want it, I believe. Yep, there's the Hydro Pump. It gets the Thunderbolts we were talking about. I think it even still gets like Heat Waves. You could even put things like Earth Power on this guy. This guy has just coverage for days. If you're looking for just a pure special attacker that gets like every single coverage option, this is the mon for you. There's usually like a couple Drampas that like sneak into top 16 as well, near the bottom sometimes. But I think Mega Drampa is definitely usable. Just full HP special attack stat. We're gonna put it in the solid tier, and I would say it's probably right. I know this is gonna sound so crazy. I'm gonna put it right here. It's one of those mons, I think, that just has ultimate coverage. It gets even like, it does get the Ice Beams too, I believe. That, what is that? Dragon
Dragalge doesn't. I would actually really compare this with Dragalge, but like this guy just gets better coverage. They both get the Thunderbolt, they both get like the Flamethrower, but like Drampa has like good defensive typing too on normal Dragon, which is actually be like a really good pivot for stuff like Chandelure. I think it's just a good mon. I think it's a good mega. I think the fact that it can check a lot of the things that come up to check you are all close range physical attackers. Garchomp has to get in close. Extra has to get in close. You can just Flamethrower, Heat Wave, Earth Power, Ice Beam those guys from across the map, and you get the big stab Hyper Beam, similar to what like Pyroar's whole kit is trying to do. Drampa does it correctly, so very, very cool mon. I think more people should give this thing a try, and even outside of Mega, right? It has a 135 base special attack stat, so you actually don't need to go Mega, so you can actually open with this guy as a lead, and just like break those Metagrosses, do a bunch of other stuff. I have a couple cool Drampa teams coming down the pipeline relatively soon. I think it's a very slept on mon, so it's definitely solid. Mega Metagross, holy moly, where do we start? First place, third place, you know, every Mega Metagross is all over the place getting everything. And the reason why this guy's so good, right? It's one of the easiest Megas to actually play. Let's take a look at the differences here. You have, so it goes from 135, 130 to 145, 150. And that's not that big of a jump, but it goes all the way up to 110 on spit out. This is probably the most like bulky, chunky, balanced stat lines that the game has. And at the same time, it gets perfect coverage. It has Ice Beam. It has Ice Punch. It has Thunder Punch, right? It has Earthquake, right? And it has a heavy slam / like Iron Head to be able to do anything. So it has gap closers, AoE, single target coverage for things that give it problems like Gyarados and Dragons. This thing can just soak Earthquakes from all the other things up there. Like we talked about this, like it's all these guys that are spamming Earthquake are all like massive physical attackers. Our highest stat is our defense, which means we actually soak the Earthquake in a lot of situations and just one-shot them with a coverage move or an Earthquake of our own. It's a very, very good mon. It's the perfect partner for Xerneas and Yveltal, in my opinion. Like, what's Yveltal weak against? Fairy moves? Pivot to your Excadrill, or pivot to your Metagross. What is Xerneas weak against? Poison and Steel moves? Pivot to your Metagross. Very, very solid mon. It's probably the most basic, run-of-the-mill Mega that you're going to see in the whole list, and it's the best mon in the game as far as Megas are concerned, in my opinion. Easy best mon in the game. It checks everything. Super effective here, 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 here. It just has the perfect coverage, right? It can one-shot almost all of the mons in the game. So really, really good coverage. Try adding this guy to your team. You're going to get a lot of wins off it. And let's talk about Mega Diancie next. Now, Mega Diancie is legal. It's not technically restricted like Xerneas and Yveltal. You can use it on your team in conjunction with things like Yveltal and Xerneas. I actually think it's a pretty good partner with Yveltal. They cover each other very well. That being said, it has some good and bad things going for it. First of all, it has a 4 times weakness to Metagross, which is going to give it a hard time. But Diancie is going to be usable in both non-Mega and Mega forms. Basically, it gains a ton of attack and special attack upon Mega Evolving at the cost of some of its defenses. So what's really cool about Diancie, right, is it gets access to a move called Diamond Storm. And Diamond Storm is actually going to be a physical move that has a 50% chance to give you a defense boost, right? It's actually really, really cool. So Diamond Storm, a lot of people think this is special. It's physical. You're actually better off, in my opinion, going with a physical Diancie with both of these moves. Player going to be gap closing, Diamond Storm for the coverage and the defense boost. And then I like to play it with, like, I think, what else did I play it when I play? I played it with dual screens, right? Yeah, Reflect and Light Screen. So you can open up with the Diancie, right? You can open up the Diancie, which is in that 150 on each of the base defenses like form, put up some dual screens, pivot out to something like a Xerneas or something like that, play a little bit of the game, and then come back in and Mega and like peel off like all the things that would give you a lot of problems. So like if we talk about what this is like in the meta, if you can avoid those Metagrosses, super effective into Yveltal, super effective into Garchomp, super effective into Chandelure, right? Decent into Xerneas in a lot of situations. It's just good into like a lot of like different mons, I think, and it's deserving of being like a solid mon. I would put Diancie probably at the, can we put it at the very bottom of the very good tier? I think that that's fair. 160 is very high, and you're actually OHKOing Garchomps with Play Rough if you actually get your hands on them. So if you're in your Mega form. So I think it's a really solid mon. And its only real drawback is, again, its weakness to Earthquake, which you can mitigate by having a good teammate or getting the defense boost off your Diamond Storm. And that's weakness to Steel, which, like, you can't really do that much about that, but, like, there's so many mons that can pivot in to alleviate that pressure. I was pairing it with stuff like Megazard Y, and I think it's just a really solid mon. I think more people should use Diancie. It's definitely slept on in the current meta right now. Talking about a relic of Season 1, we have Mega Gyarados, right? Mega Gyarados Now, Mega Gyarados gains 30 attack. It gains a little bit of defense, a lot of Spadef actually. Same amount, but like more impactful right there. Mega Gyarados is still really good. It gets that dark typing, so you can stab things like Crunch, and then it gets things like, you know, Earthquake. It gets access to Bounce, which you can use in its non-mega form, and still have Stab, and then Waterfall. It's the most common Waterfall user in the game. Alpha Gyarados is going to be doing tons of AoE damage with all these moves. Even gets access to like Stone Edge and a bunch of other stuff like that. Now, I think gaining Dark typing in this meta dominated by Xerneas is going to be rough. So you tend to see a lot more like Walk-In, Berry Gyarados, AV Gyarados. I've been using actually a lot of Life Orb Gyarados and having very, very good results with things like Ice Fang on it, right? Just to be able to one-shot Garchomps and stuff like that. So I think Gyarados is definitely usable. And the fact that it is a flying type before you Mega means it can be that ground pivot that a lot of different teams like a Diancie would really need. Like Gyarados is a perfect pivot for Diancie. You block the ground moves, you block the steel moves. It's very, very solid. Speaking of like very good, it's going to be in the very good tier. I would still put Gyarados probably right here, just because like base form Gyarados is similar to Garchomp, Scizor, and Metagross. It's just one of the best mons in the game pre-Mega, and then when you go Mega, you have a completely different way to play it. Oh man, people are dropping the follows on the Twitch channel while we're doing this. I should probably disable that alert box. There we go. People are checking out the channel while we're just like recording this video. This is your reminder. Go drop a follow on the YouTube channel, or go check out the Twitch channel where we host these daily tournaments that we've been talking about. Go check it out. We host them every single day, and they're a ton of fun. So let's get into the last few on the list here. We have Mega Barbarnacle. Now, I actually used Mega Barbarnacle in a tour very recently, and let's plug in the stats here. It gains 35 boost to its attack, 15 on its defense, a little bit in special attack, which is completely wasted, and then about 20 in its Spadef. Now, this mon, on paper, almost seems good. It goes from a rock water to a rock fighting, so when you want to rock that close combat, you can get some KOs. So you can go close combat, you can go Stone Edge. I was rocking it with Waterfall still, just because like in the non-mega form, that's a lot of damage. And then I think I had Swords Dance on it, right? That's a set that I was using. This thing at best went like 1-for-1, and at worst, it has like every weakness in the game somehow at the same time. It has both of its forms are weak against ground. Its main form is 4 times weak to grass. This form's, weak to psychic, weak to fairy. It's so weird. It's like a weird mixture of like Phalanx and like rock typing. It's just like a really weird Phalanx. And I don't particularly like it that much, but it will one-shot the things that you need to one-shot, right? After a Swords Dance, 140 is definitely enough to get Okos if you're hitting things for super effective moves with these. So it's okay, but it's definitely below average. I would put it probably here. Yeah, it's at the top of the below average, because like it will one-shot the things, but it requires so much babysitting, and it's just a meme at this point. Who knows? It might be better when it actually gets abilities and stuff like that. Like I think if it had like Tough Claws and stuff like that, that'd be actually kind of nice. Give it a 1.3 boost on that stat, and I think like 88 would be in a respectable speed tier in a turn-based Pokemon game, but as it stands right now, Mon is just really hard to use. It's like a really weird Phalanx. It's slightly better than Phalanx because like it can stab other moves and can check things like Yveltal and stuff like that, but it's still really rough. So let's talk about Mega Starmie. Starmie's a bit of a weird mon here. Starmie, similar to things like Mawile, Medicham, gains that pure power, so I think it just has like probably a little bit higher attack, very similar to its special attack set. It's going to be a mixed sweeper that can do both physical or special things. Way I like to play this mon is just go by Light Screen Reflect. Again, very, very standard. And then you have access to like Hydro, and then you can go for like Ice Beam, Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt's kind of what I'm doing here. You can go Ice Beam though if you want, and then it's solid. I tend to build it more special, but you could build physical if you wanted to and go like Bulk Up, Waterfall, Zen Headbutt. It gets all those options. Like if we were to pair it with like physical and see what other moves it gets, it gets like Flip Turn, it gets Psycho Cut, Zen Headbutt we talked about. There's not that many other moves that you can really get, so like I think it's usable. I think it's a fun mon. It's really, really funny when it mega evolves, but it's probably in the below average category if you're going to be enabling specifically a Mega Starmie. But I can't really put like a dual screens user in below average. I can't. I honestly can't. I'd have to put it right here at the bottom of usable. Dual screens, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, that's good coverage. The problem with Starmie is even in Mega, it will miss the KOs with Thunderbolts and Ice Beams on things because they're not stabbed. You're probably just better off with like a regular Life Orb Starmie. I know that looks so weird to put at the like bottom of usable, but you just don't KO things, and you get Oko by like everything. It's like a really bad Greninja who's also in the same tier, and it's just rough. Starmie's, if you're specifically enabling a Mega Starmie, it's just rough because you don't have access to that Life Orb boost that a regular Starmie would have. And let's take a look at Mega Floette, a Pokemon that I think a lot of people have just stopped using in ranked ever since Diancie became legal. So Floette here. So we got Floette right here, and it goes from like right here. These are both of them right here. So it gets like 20 boost to its Spadef, 55, so it gets 30 on a special attack, a little bit in defense. I think it's okay. I think Light of Ruin is a very cool move, being able to do like a 140 massive like fairy hyper beam thing. It takes half your health. The problem is this thing shares the same typing with Xerneas, so it's gonna kind of struggle in that situation. And then as far as its special coverage, it doesn't get that much more. It gets access to like Psychic, you could probably like Calm Mind it, right? But it just doesn't really get like a ton of coverage. And 155 is not actually all that strong. You'd be better off with just a regular Floette with like a Life Orb or a Fairy Feather, or even a Berry in a lot of different situations. So that being said, where would we put it? It's definitely in the usable category, but it's definitely a one trick. The good news for it is its one trick is actually kind of nice. So I would probably put it above Sally, just because like it's a mono fairy typing is decent, even though like that's the same weakness as Zern. And you can like middle of the game, I'm thinking like respawn. You see people fight in the middle of like a map like the Plus map. You go for the Floette, you just rip that Light of Ruin and try and get as many KOs as possible. Like I do think like a Light of Ruin might do like 70+% to an Excadrill. Same thing to like a Skarm. If they've taken chip from like Brave Bird, you're gonna be able to KO. You can KO here. So I think it's usable, right? But it's not amazing. And as far as the last few, we do not rank these guys because they're not in the format. And I know people are using Chestnut because they've, you know, genned in the Mega Stone. Mega Chestnut's actually kind of cool. I'd probably put it like around here somewhere, but I'm going to wait to talk about it until after we actually get it next season. But that is going to be the list. This took 2 hours plus to do. If you guys like this sort of analytical, educational Pokemon Legends ZA content, please think about dropping a sub on the channel. We're trying to get to 50K. We're trying harder every single day. We also stream daily on Twitch TV/ThoughtsPlusForm, where we host all these really cool tournaments. If you want to enter those or have questions about how they work, think about checking out the stream. You guys can also join the Discord. There's a link to that in the description. And I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the list, and let me know if you have any questions. Let me know your own list. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Peace out. I'll see you guys next time.